So it was awesome to be able to meet you. That was pretty cool. But pleasure to have you guys on. And I think it would only be right to start. Mark, everyone's been wondering, you kind of disappeared on us. The people who are diehards know where to pop in and really get your thoughts if you really, really just got that Mark K. Bulls thoughts itch. But what have you been up to since you went away from just everyday Bulls content, covering it, podding every day? What have you been up to?
Well, if anyone's got a Mark K, itch of sorts, I'm sure there's an ointment for that they need to be prescribed pretty quickly, because that's problematic. But what I've been doing, I don't know, like just raising my kids, essentially. That's all I've been doing. Kids and work. It's been pretty much 2 years since I stepped away. So yeah, just doing the dad stuff, I guess you'd say, the responsible human thing. But yeah, I disappeared because I didn't really want to be on that right-wing propaganda app anymore. And I was able to do that successfully for a while, but then Frederick wasn't returning my messages on WhatsApp. He was really slow at using WhatsApp, which is annoying. He wouldn't respond. So I had to recreate a Twitter account just to chat with him and Doug, because he was terrible at WhatsApp. So it's all really Fred's fault, I guess, that I'm somewhat back. I wouldn't say I'm actually back. But yeah, it's all blame Fred. Yeah.
Now, I think I have a two-part follow-up to that. Now, I know the answer to the first part, I think, which is, have you been still keeping up with the Bulls, which I can obviously tell that. And then the second one, I'm curious, the little ones, your kids, are they being raised as Bulls fans, or is that like a far-off decision that you're dreading down the line?
So I initially started them raising them as Bulls fans. They had a lot of merch, a lot of gear, Bulls gear, but the last couple of years there has been no additional merch purchased. I don't think they know really what basketball is or who the Chicago Bulls are, so I have not made the decision to plunge them into the madness, so to speak. So I'll let them make their own choices, but at least at present, no, they haven't been subjected to that nonsense, so which is probably a good thing. So fortunate for them.
Well, like I said, I already know you've been keeping up with the team a little bit, so I will just give you one tip, though. Stay away as they get older from getting any specific player merch, like jerseys or anything. You don't want to get them too attached to any one player. You know how quickly that can change. But I wanted to shift gears really quick. Fred, while we have you, people think of you automatically, if they don't know your pod, listen to you, as the Bulls super fan. Somebody who, if there's a guy who's like, I want the Bulls to win no matter what, Fred's going to be near the top of that list. So I do just have to ask, you've been through a lot of these seasons probably, but how do you watch the Bulls when it seems like the objective is for the team to lose? Are you still finding joy in this? Is every night misery? I think before we started recording, you kind of tipped your hand a little bit and said something I didn't expect, but how are you watching the team right now?
Well, before we get into that and answer the question, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on the show. I mean, it's great to have the three legends here and Mark, and it's so awesome that he's back. I always considered you guys to be like royalty in the Bulls in the Bulls community, and Mark's kind of like our court gesture. But anytime I talk about Bulls as knowledgeable as you guys are, it's always a good thing. Because I don't know if you feel this way, but I think the average Bulls fan is not that knowledgeable. I think they're very highly influenced by sports radio in Chicago. So the average fan, I find myself having to educate a lot of the average fans. But for you guys, I don't have to educate, and talk about, shot profiles and things like that. So it's always good to have a discussion with you. And anyone who's listening to this, I would not consider an average fan, right? In the Bulls podcaster world, these are people that are really passionate about the Bulls. But, I could have a talk about left tackle position with an average Chicago Bears fan, and feel like that person is pretty knowledgeable about the team. Not so with the average Bulls, quote unquote, fan. But, also, I'm just thrilled Mark's back, because there was a huge hole in my life. Like, Mark was kind of like this, antagonist, for lack of a better word. He was the Joker to my Batman. But now that he's back, I think I find it a little bit disturbing. I think we're kind of, I find myself more in agreement with him than ever before. I'm nodding my head when I read his tweets. And I think that's a sad reflection of where I'm at as a Bulls fan, Michael, and guilty in that I'm frustrated, because we're going on a decade now of this team really kind of, for the vast majority of this time, we kind of been cheering for losses. And I think that is one of the worst things that, that, that you can have, right? It's just being cheering for losses and hoping that the team doesn't win. And I think that's a sad reflection of where I'm at as a Bulls fan, Michael, and guilty in that I'm frustrated because we're going on a decade now of this team really kind of, for the vast majority of this time, we kind of been cheering for losses. And I think that is one of the worst things that you can have, right? It's just being cheering for losses and hoping that the team doesn't win. or getting fooled into cheering for wins like we did last year. I'm not going to get fooled again this year. So I think that's just a horrible feeling as a fan. And, to me, the bigger frustration is we went through this 3-year rebuild and we had 3 straight top 10 picks at 7-7-7. We had Kobe White. We had, Wendell Carter Jr. We had, and then Lauri Markkanen. And then we handed this rebuild, the results of this, over to this current front office, who I think in large part just squandered it and wasted 5 years of our lives with 1 playoff win. This is a results-oriented business. How are these guys still here is what I keep on kind of coming back to. And I understand now as Bulls fans, the really smart ones, we're kind of turning on ourselves. We have this whole contingent of fans that are really pro-Acme and anti-Billy. And then we have this other side, which I think I'm in, and I think probably Mark also is in, where we kind of like Billy. We kind of think he's not the issue. He's not the coach. It's the front office. And just the whole scenario, the whole situation here is horrible. And I don't see the bigger issue to me is there's all these people who are kind of celebrating like, well, we got a great future ahead of us. And I'm like, do we really? Like, because in 2019, we had a 21-year-old Lauri Markkanen and a 23-year-old Zach LaVine, and we were kind of like in the same spot. And now we have, Modest, who I think we're all excited about, but I don't think his future is any brighter than it was for Lauri Markkanen. And then, we have a 23-year-old Josh Giddey, who, just like Zach LaVine, is got a lot of faults in his game, especially on the defensive end. That is this going to yield a championship? That's what matters most. So that's why I think this year is so freaking important. That there's talent at the top of this draft that can absolutely send us to a title. And every win to me, like the ones, especially the ones against the Warriors, which is appalling, and the Suns, just little minor changes could have allowed us to have the best of both worlds, which is development from Josh Giddey and Modest, and a loss.
Okay, so again, you definitely kind of answered there. I mean, you think these wins are meaningless when they're getting them right now. Like even Mata scoring 41 just because it was against the likes of Guy Santos and those type of guys. You didn't see any type of meaningful, momentum from that. It was just like another,
No, I'm not going to say that. I mean, obviously, it was one of the best games we've seen from any young Bulls player, especially a 21-year-old. When you're scoring over 40 points in an NBA game, we should all be ecstatic and excited. My issue is that with just a small tweak in that game, we could have still had the loss and the development. Like, why are you playing over 40 minutes with Buzelis and Giddey? You could have had them play 36-38. You probably would have lost the game. Frankly, we should have lost the game if Green didn't have that completely idiotic foul at the end of the regulation. So, like, to me, if we end up losing like 6 percentage points for a top 4 pick in exchange for one game where he scores 40 points against the anti-Warriors, it's not a win. It's not a win to me.
All right, I guess
we could have both the best worlds, the best of both worlds, with just small minor changes.
You're kind of leaning into the bigger picture, which I'll pose this question to you, Mark, and then obviously Fred as well. But Mark, am I getting soft here? Does AK get any credit for pulling? Like, I want to give him some credit. Like Billy, I obviously see no fault. Anyone who follows me knows they call me a Billy defender, all type of stuff. I'm just saying he's a decent defensive-minded coach who's not creative on offense, plays the cards that he's dealt. But AK, who I've given a lot of grief over the years, rightfully so, I give him a lot of credit lately because I've gotten into a big argument with my good friend Peter Bonello, who's a comedian here in Chicago, who he says AK doesn't get any credit for trading all these guys at the trade deadline and going into tank mode. It's something that should have been done years ago, which many people agree. And so he did what needed to be done, and that's his job. He gets no credit. I say that's not fair. He deserves some credit because if we're being honest, many of us expected Vooch to be on the team past the trade deadline. Many of us expected the Bulls to keep Kobe, Io, and just let guys walk maybe. The situation could have been a lot worse than it is, and maybe that's a little bit of just Bulls doomerism. But am I being wrong in saying AK deserves some credit for pulling the plug better late than never?
Well, I mean, define some. Like, are we talking 1% or are we talking 50%? Because I'm generally, by that I mean, like, I think you deserve 99% of the blame or 99% of the retribution. If you want to give me 1% credit, then that's fine. But if you're looking for more than that, then that's probably where I divert. I don't give anyone credit for doing something that they should have done years ago. That doesn't mean I have to trash him for finally moving on and doing the thing. but I don't also have to give him credit, I guess is my point. Maybe I'll give him credit if he turned it around and yeah, he's years late, but maybe turned around and sold these guys for actual value, which is never going to happen because obviously he waited too long. But if in a hypothetical world, had that happen, had he got some actual okay return for Kobe, for Vooch, for Io, whatever, then maybe I'd be more inclined to give him some grace in that regard. But if you're 1, maybe 2 years behind on the thing, and in addition to that, not getting the return that maybe you could have had you had moved on things a little bit sooner, I don't think he deserves credit. And also, yeah, let me just end it that way, I suppose. I don't think he deserves any credit for finally doing it. So in that regard, Michael, maybe you're being too good-natured. Clearly, your parents raised you well enough to be able to come back to AK after all these years and think, oh, look, let's give this guy some level of grace. But for me, no, he doesn't deserve any credit at all, even if it's a small modicum, just because he waited too long. Yeah, there are some interesting players on this roster, but too many mistakes.
I'd like to jump in on this one. First of all, Michael, it's admirable that you look for the good in everyone. I think we should all do that. There's good in everyone. I heard that in a song. I think it was a McCartney song. I don't remember which one, but like, what do you really think? Let's give me the top 3 things about what is this Acme done? Let's break it down. Like right now, I want to know. Like, I think to me, probably the best thing you would say is probably signing Caruso. And even that was the result of a massive mistake by the Lakers not to re-sign him. He didn't want to come here. He wanted to stay with LA. Like, what are the top 3 things that this guy's done in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a long list. So if I off the top of my head quickly, drafting Montas Buzelis, drafting Ayo Dosunmu, which he later kind of reversed that one by trading him for a poor package, but probably more on that a little bit later. And then outside of that, it kind of gets slim pickings. I mean, you're looking at maybe signing Trey Jones to what will probably be looked at as a very value deal over the next couple of years as he continues to look like one of the better backup point guards. So when you compare that list to the list of things we think he's messed up on, it's obviously drastically different. But what I will say is, again, maybe this is me being too soft. Basketball, I think everyone here would agree that AK's process has been a little bit flawed. We are a results-oriented business. AK reminds me of the guy who, it's rainy outside, he slips, he trips, and he falls face first onto $100 bill. It's like, oh, man, I fell. I'm going to hurt myself. Boom. You just changed your luck like that. And in a results-oriented business, Leonard Miller, he ends up, right now it's like, okay, whatever, Leonard Miller. He ends up being a decent wing that they, let's just say in the offseason, he does the smart thing and re-signs Leonard Miller to a long-term deal on decent money. He got Trey Jones coming back. He lets most of the guys walks. He gets, decently lucky in the lottery and drafts a top 4 pick. And the franchise looks reinvigorated next year behind Matas, Giddey, top 4 draft pick, Leonard Miller, Trey Jones, whatever else. If that team ends up, looking like it's on a good trajectory, AK didn't do a ton to get to that, but just the fact that it happened under his watch, I think he weirdly, again, will have to get a lot of credit. It's almost the same as the Jokic thing. To this day, I'm not sure how much did AK say, hey, get that guy. But forever, it will be a part of his legacy, and it'll be attached to him. And in the same way, if the Bulls get, let's just say, the number 1 pick and take AJ DeBansta and the Bulls are awesome next year, I don't think anybody's going to remember it for anything other than, hey, AK did a good job rebuilding the Bulls. Although we'll all know how we got to that point. But I think, again, he deserves a little bit of credit because pulling the plug when he did, as much as Mark said, it is his job. He needed to do it. I think it makes a difference. They're top 9 in odds right now. I think 20% chance at a top 4 pick. We'll see if they ruin that heading into these last 14 or so games in the season. But again, hey, I'll admit it. I'm getting soft, but I'm ready to give AK a little bit of credit as we get to the finish line here. He could have did tanking a little bit more, but they still wanted to hold on to a little bit shred of that Bulls integrity, and I do understand that. But guilty. Yeah. I mean, what did you think on this? What did you think?
I love what you called out there, but I'd like to point out, and even I saw the Undisputed in the comments.
I was about to say, yeah, exactly.
He brought up a good point. Well, the Giddey trade for Caruso and the extension, but even the good things he did, if you have to look at the context of the Giddey trade, The Giddey trade was, this is a guy who just had been played off the court in the playoffs. He was at an all-time low in terms of value across the league. When that trade happened, everybody I knew, everybody who covers the NBA was shocked that there was not draft capital not included in that trade from a team that had too much to keep. It's inexcusable to me that there was not another asset in that trade. Now, it worked out for both teams. Obviously, Caruso was a major fixture in Oklahoma City, winning a title last year, home run there. And Giddey, he had a great year last year in the second half of the season, and he had a really good year in the first half of this season. But I think we're still kind of a little far away from just being able to say, well, that was a home run. Like the contract extension, we were happy he signed at $25 million, and he's definitely putting up numbers. That's not an issue. But I think there's still a big question on whether or not Josh Giddey's ever going to lead a team to a title. I don't think I could say that. And I'm a Giddey now. I'm a fan. I like the guy. Everything the guy has done. And even, Mark's going to laugh at this. I think one of the best moves was, I couldn't even believe he got an asset for Ball and he got a player like Okoro, I think is a winner. And he's a huge defensive, stop it, Mark. It's a huge defensive asset, our best perimeter defender on the outside. But even so, as much as a fan I am of Okoro, I would still rather have a first-round pick that was offered at the trade deadline last year by Memphis. So you screwed that up. Like almost everything you look at doesn't even come remotely from countering his fireable offenses, which is drafting P-Will, re-signing him for $590, trading Laurie and Gafford for nothing, for garbage, no additional draft asset in the Caruso trade, drafting Dalen Terry over Kessler and Braun, the Vooch trade, adding a third year to the Vooch re-signing. Signing Javon Carter for 3 years, holding on to Caruso DeRozan too long, not moving Lonzo, which I just mentioned, passing on the Pelicans trade. Like all this stuff, if you add it up, it's not even close. So I'm kind of like so beaten down as a Bulls fan with just seeing how the previous front office was traded and how many people wanted them out of town. Like you compare their draft record with this draft record, it's not even close. Like, you brought up Io. Listen, I was sitting on my couch calling my father, like, I can't believe Io has fallen to this point. I mean, there's historically, Mark K, it's well known, our joke that was public about him wanting to get Minnie Cooper and me talking about Io and like losing my mind about it. So like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give him credit for when here's Fred, Pfeiffer in his 40s sitting on his couch yelling to everybody, I can't believe Io is going to be picked. Everybody who's an Illinois fan wanted Io drafted. So like, I mean, of course he gets credit for it and he did do it. And he signed him to a good deal, and he signed Kobe to a good deal. So, of course, there were some good things that he did. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, this is insane. And he's going to get fired. He'll get fired next year, at the end of next year. I'm certain when we don't make the playoffs again. That's what the time they're going to probably take him out. But it's like, to me, the craziest thing is this contingent of fans who say, you know what, I want Billy fired, but I want to give him a chance to stay here and pick the next coach. It's like the most insane. How could you possibly say Billy Donovan should be fired? Keep in mind, he signed him once, then extended him, and now you're fine with him firing him and still making the decisions. Like to me, like this guy's batting 1 of 3 in his draft picks.
But I mean, that's what I mean when I say it comes down to being a results-oriented business. Like, Bulls, if they have a 9th best odds going into the lottery, if they stay in that 9 to 14 range versus jumping into the top 4, that could be the difference between a clean house and 4-year extensions for everybody. Literally just that draft pick, not even based on how good of a job we think necessarily everyone's doing. That's why, again, I think AK deserves more credit for himself because he may have just guaranteed he and Billy are here for a little bit longer with the Bulls draft odds, again, going into this lottery. But I do want to ask while we have you guys, obviously the trade deadline, they like remade the entire rotation. Is there like any player that you guys are watching as we go into the fabulous part of the NBA season where you got like 10 games left and everyone's having loads of fun? Are there any players that you're actually looking forward to seeing, let's just say, in next year's rotation?
Yeah, looking forward might be strong, but intriguing has been Leonard Miller. I think that's fair. He looks like a decent guy to take a gamble on. Rob Dillingham, I need to be sold on, to be honest. I understand that he's been playing better the last 5 to 7 games, whatever it might be. Looks like he's getting more comfortable, but I wasn't a big Dillingham guy at the draft. I'm not sure if I believe in that archetype of player more generally. So I need to see more from him to really be, I don't know, intrigued or inclined to believe that there's something there. But I think with Lennon Miller, at least, he kind of fits where the league is going or is already at the league more generally. So I think he has a chance to make the IO trade look more respectable. Dillingham, let's see. Ivy, who the hell knows? I don't think anyone can say with any level of confidence what that will be in any way. But it's certainly not trending in the right direction. Beyond that, I don't know if there's anything really to be excited about. I don't understand how people can look at Colin Sexton and think that's someone that you should be looking at to bring back going forward. He's, in his prime now. He should be playing on a contending team. The Bulls should be rebuilding properly. They don't need a guy like Colin Sexton right now taking up shots and time from a Dillingham or an Ivy or whomever it may be.
Yes.
Nick Richards, why the hell is he here now, let alone next season? Never want to see Nick Richards ever again. Yabu, like, again, why is Yabusele here? This is just crazy that he was brought in at the deadline. When you're meant to be going younger, you bring in a 30-year-old journeyman. Just doesn't make any sense. So it's probably more so the young guys that have that scale to be interesting. But the fact that the Bulls actually traded for some veterans while moving out some veterans didn't make a lot of sense to me, to the point where, one, why are you doing that? But two, certainly don't want to see them back next season. So it's the younger guys, but spearheaded by really Leonard Miller and maybe Dillingham.
I would say for me, Jaden Ivey, I thought at Purdue, I watched a ton of him at Purdue. He's going to be a fantastic player. I think he was headed towards that. He improved his jump shot quite a bit. And then he got that serious injury a year ago. And, he hasn't looked right since, right? So I am still kind of high on him. And I think if you really get him with the right medical people and get him healthy, there's a ton of talent there. Is he ever going to approach? Because he had insane athleticism that you just can't teach at Purdue, and he was an incredible player there. Obviously, if you're having serious injuries, it's going to take away that athleticism. There's going to be issues, right? But I still am not ready to give up on him. Dillingham, I love Dillingham in turn. I loved him at Kentucky, but the issue with him and this team is I think he's a terrible fit. You cannot have small players like that. It's just the nature. Like the average all defensive player is 6'4", 6'4" to 6'8". So like Drew Holiday and Jalen Suggs were two smallest guys. They're like 6'4". I mean, even like a guy like Trey Jones, as fine of a defender he is, size is like part of the equation when it comes to being an excellent defensive player. And if you're 6'1" and that weak, like Dillingham is, you're always going to have to protect him, always on the defensive side of the ball. And this team, if you're going to build around Modis, who does, I agree with you, Michael, he has excellent defensive upside. He's not a good defender right now. He's a good shot blocker. He's not a good defender. And Josh Giddey is always going to have massive physical limitations on that end. He's a point guard who can't guard point guards. He's got to guard fours. So you really need to build, if that's going to be your core of Modis and Giddey, you better have some awesome defensive players around those guys, including an elite rim protector. How is Dillingham going to fit in with that? Like, to me, his upside is as a sixth man coming off the bench, hopefully in like a kind of that role next year, and give it to him, let him like take over, but I don't see him fitting greatly with Modis and Giddey. So I do want to address one thing, because I did see a comment come up here about Essengate, who's kind of like that other guy that we're all excited about. And I'm shocked at the amount of fans who act like this guy's just going to be good. Like there's no question he's going to be great. Like,
don't tell Undisputed that he'll lose his mind. He's got it already made up in his mind. Yeah, man. We try to tell him.
Well, really quickly, he did bring up a good point that I wanted to get on Mark about. So you guys don't believe in the power of friendship, because Yabusele clearly there to help Noah adjust to the league, have a friend around, just like, Lachlan Olbrich. He's there to hang out with, Giddey, have him someone to hang out with, and talk about back home. So you guys don't believe in friendship.
French baguettes.
That's interesting. I would think that of all the people to believe in the power of friendship, that Mark and Fred, two of the best friends in the world, would understand the power of friendship. That's
also
shocking.
Fred, check your Twitter DM, because I want to get some more people in here, because you guys only got like a little bit of time, and I want people like that to be in here.
I'll send it out. No. I'll send out a quick thing. Jump on with us. Let me just jump on. There's nobody on. There's only one guy that was in my lifetime as a Bulls fan. That was Jack Haley, who was basically Rodman's buddy, and he was on the roster to be the cheerleader for the team. Nobody on this team is good enough to be just, hey, you're good enough. We're going to have a roster spot set aside for you for your friend. Lots of Ulbrich sucks. He shouldn't be on the team. He's not an NBA player. I don't care if he's Australian. Why don't we hire Mark? Have Mark come and sit on the bench. I'd honestly rather have Mark on the bench than lots of
Ulbrich. Same. That could be like talking, but like I think Mark on the bench would be fucking great.
Deal. It'll pay him for my house loan, my home loan.
And then you get to be next to Billy Donovan, Mark. You see, Fred's got a plan here.
Say no more.
He's definitely a bar shooter.
I feel like that's what this team needs, though. Like we talk about the power of friendship, and I know we've been talking about it in the core, but like this team needs some hard-nosed people in that organization. Like I want to see a dude like Joakim Noah be around the team more, and I know he is. He has been, but like they need some people to come through and let them know that everything's not fucking flowers and fairy tales all the time. Like you're not good right now, and you need people in your ear telling you we're not. I mean, Vooch kind of did it. We'll never forget the classic, the game winner, and then Jalen Smith standing behind him looking goofy as hell, and then Vooch was clearly fed up, and he tells him like, "Stop, because we're getting excited over a win that we just barely scraped by. We're not good." And I feel like so many people, the fans included, like you, Undisputed, like I understand your optimism, but like when you have a bunch of people hyping your head up and blowing smoke up your ass, how are you supposed to really improve when they have a bunch of people telling this team that they're good right now? They're not good right now, and that's okay. Like it's okay to understand, hey, we're gonna be good one day, but right now we're ass. As Big Dave would say, we're full ass right now, and they need more people to me in the building and around that franchise telling them like, we suck, and we need to stop acting like we don't suck right now. I think the ass whooping that Modest got from Luka, I want more shit like that. Reality checks for this team because we are far away, to me, from being a legitimate, serious team. And we just have, I don't know what it is, maybe the fan support, maybe that Chicago is one of the biggest sports cities out there. These guys may feel like they're closer to being serious than they really are, but we're not, man. Like we need more people telling them some serious changes are in order, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
In terms of the players Fred kind of brought up at the end there, I don't want to say I give up on Jaden Ivey. I wrote a lot about him when the Bulls first got him. He was one of the players, just considering the pedigree, I was pretty excited about. Injuries are one thing, but for NBA players more than any, I would say, sport, when it's kind of gone mentally for them, when they're not kind of believing in themselves, is when I really start to worry. And just Ivey's quotes and stuff and the way he's talking about his game and everything, just not encouraging. I don't know how that situation is going to work out, but I'm not really factoring him much into the Bulls' future. But I do think the Dosunmu trade, which I thought was like dreadful, I think I did great. I think it was the only thing I said, like FD, whatever. Like you might as well have kept Io at that point. I do think it has the chance, as you guys kind of both mentioned, to turn itself into similar to the Giddey Caruso thing as a win-win trade, if you want to call it that. Just because I hate when you say like this guy has Derrick Rose's crossover, and then someone goes, "You think that guy's Derrick Rose?"
Yeah, man. And, no nuance.
I do think from just looking at games in person, Rob Dillingham, I think I said he reminds me of young John Wall, not his game or anything, just in terms of purely his speed. And Dillingham has a long way to go because his weakness is he just can't score. And for a guy who's not big, if you can't score the ball, it's just going to be hard for you to have much of any value. But his end-to-end speed, just his speed is something you can't teach. If he could harness legitimately any part of his game offensively, whether it's finishing in the paint, drawing free throws, making jump shots. I mean, he's trying to be more aggressive from three. In March, I think he's at like 32%, so still not really making an impact from out there. But he's so fast, you just see it in person. If he could literally harness any part of his game, I get that he's worth keeping around if you're not investing a ton of money into that spot. Leonard Miller, Mark mentioned being very intrigued by, which Mark is notoriously very tough to impress when it comes to role players, so that tells you a lot. And I would agree. I've said when you see Miller in person, what stands out is he is big as hell. He's just big on a Bulls team that's
6'10",
very small. Right? Yeah, he's 6'10".
He's a big body.
Some people say 6'11". I mean, he looks maybe a little taller than both of us. It stands out on a Bulls team that doesn't have a lot of size. There's a lot of times I trust him to give guys problems at the rim defensively more than Nick Richards, who can be a little bit uncoordinated at times when going for contests. Unlike Mark, I do think Richards is worth keeping around because the Bulls don't seem to invest much in rim runners. So even if you're going to have one that's not very good, I think it's worth it to have one at some point. But it's just at the point where Miller and Matas, I think, is an intriguing defensive combo next to Giddey, where, again, I think the ultimate vision is just a bunch of tall, lanky players around Giddey, and you kind of see where you can go from there, try to create speed advantages offensively and defensively. So I do think the Leonard-Miller-Dillingham combo has a chance to really be something for the Bulls. As always, it's going to be about how much Billy actually plays these guys next year. And then, again, Noah Asingbe, as Fred mentioned, I'm one of the biggest fanboys of Asingbe. I think he's going to be very good if he ever even has a chance to get on an NBA court under Billy Donovan, which is going to be his biggest hurdle. So we'll see there. But again, I'm pretty confident with the return and the guys that they got at the trade deadline after initially hating it. I didn't mention Sexton because, again, that's just going to kind of impede the progress you need from those younger guys as leaders. But I do want to ask, since we are in March and we have both you guys, I know you're probably not in full-time scout mode, but if things were to go best case scenario, the Bulls were to get number 1, top 4, are there any draft prospects you guys have seen people talk about where you're like, I really think the Bulls could start to turn things around if they get this guy?
I'm 100% all in on AJ DeBonza. I mean, the guy looks freaking phenomenal, and I think right away, if you were able to get lucky enough to get, I think he's going to be number 1 overall. If you're able to get him, right away, you're looking at a team now. Suddenly, if you can get like Walker Kessler as a restricted free agent at the center position, you're talking about a team that could be 45 to 50 wins pretty quickly. And I think I'll be a top 10 NBA player all over him. I don't necessarily believe that for anybody else in this team. I think Giddey and Modest have top 30 potential, but not top 10, kind of like how, we were with Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen, right? They're in that 15 to 30 range, but like AJ DeBonza has it, man. The guy's a stud. Every plays hard. That's the biggest thing to me. One of the biggest things to me is, do you play hard? Do you have a motor? I mean, I saw that from Patrick Williams in year one, and some of the most ridiculous. The fan base had this like mass delusion on how good this guy was. Like from day one, there were warning signs. Like he had the worst plus minus on the team. He never rebounded. He was passive offensively. He had his famous, I call him standstill P. Will. He'd watch the shot go up and start jogging back. Everybody's like, he acts like he belongs out there. No, he doesn't. He sucked. He was terrible. He was absolutely freaking terrible. He didn't play hard. Didn't once give it 100% in a game. And that's it. Still issue is still here today. I found the hardest thing to teach is a motor. AJ DeBonza has it all over. So I'm 100% in on him. I do kind of jump in really quick though about Noah Asingbe. Like, why do you think he's going to be great? I'm just curious. Like, I watch him. Sorry, Mark, I don't want to walk over your time here, but I do have to just get this off my chest. Like, the guy was like 16, 17. He's playing in a high-end league. He wasn't a good free throw shooter right away. That's a huge red flag for me. He's not uber athletic. He's got the size, no doubt about that. That's impressive. He's got the size. He looks fit. He physically fits the bill. But he shot 23% from three in the 4 G League games this year. And he averaged 23 points a game in those games. Well, we had Kevin Knox average 22 points a game in 39 games. Matt McClung averaged 29. That means nothing to me. Like, is he going to get better as a 3-point shooter because he can't shoot? Period. And I don't know, man. I'm not sold on this idea that he's going to be a future superstar like everyone else is. I hope I'm wrong.
It might be a little bit of a cop out. I mean, G League, I don't really care about. I've literally did color commentary for the G League. I've seen the G League. It doesn't mean a lot. It's just a lot of running up and down. He did look good in his G League time. That being said, he looks dreadful in his 10 minutes of NBA time. But just to be quick on it, the reason I believe in him, I won't get too nerdy about my whole draft manifesto, whatever. But
no, good nerdy.
Just things I'm looking for in guys just quickly is free throw rate. Obviously, it's a big one. Asingbe, whether it's pure luck, blind luck, aggressiveness, he's getting to the free throw line a ton when he was playing German League ball. That translated a little bit to his G League time, which, again, not something huge, but you just want to see if that keeps translating. He did the same thing in Summer League to some degree, but you answered it at the start. Same as Leonard Miller, when you see Noah in person, the kid is absolutely massive. Now, it's a lot different because he's skinny as hell, but and I'm one to talk, but I'm just saying he is a very skinny guy. He's super, super big, stands out in a crowd. And you can't teach measurables. But the other thing you can't teach is similar to motor is a willingness to try. Sort of how Ben Simmons would be a great player if he ever tried to shoot jump shots, like not even got great at it, if he just simply attempted, like thought it was a thing he should try to give a chance. And from what I've seen from Asingbe, there's nothing he's scared to try on the basketball court. So he's sort of just like a ball of clay, to where I think when you have that size, that level of physicality he plays with, getting to the free throw line, he's not scared to bang around for a guy who doesn't have a ton of heft on him. I think as he gets physically stronger and fills out that 6'10", 6'11" frame, the fact that he's willing to try everything on the court, it's how you end up getting a player like a Pascal Siakam, where, again, you can shoot the three, you can play in the mid-range, you can guard 4 to 5 positions. So I just think under a coach like Billy Donovan, who focuses on defense first and then three-pointers and getting to the rim, there's a clear path for him to become an impact player if he keeps developing physically. So he is a player where the physical attributes is what drives it more than anything. And to me, again, you just can't teach that. So basketball skill is important, but if you can start with that size and that skill and that willingness to try a little bit of everything on the floor, it's important. And the fact that he's willing to shoot a lot of threes, even though he's not great at them yet, tells me a lot about his game. And the fact that he's not scared to get to the free throw line a ton, even though he's not great at shooting them, tells me a lot about his mentality to develop as a player.
Well said. Mark?
Look, I think I'm going to say it's the right opinion because it's my opinion. I think the right opinion with the Asingbe is to have no opinion at all.
Yes.
Because who the hell knows? Like, I understand
you
all
hear
those
the
things
undisputed,
that you said, Michael. And I think they're all, well-founded points. But similarly, like, he's very raw. He's missed essentially his whole rookie year. Extremely skinny dude who had a problematic injury that's going to impact him or has impacted his ability to get bigger, which was probably the biggest thing that he needed to work on was his body.
Yes.
And seemingly has lost a lot of time in doing so. So for the way I think about Asingbe is similar to Jaden Ivey in the sense that it's just, who knows? Like, I don't want to have a hot take about it one way or another. I'm not going to sit here and say this guy is going to be good because who the hell knows? Similarly, like, I'm not in a position to say he's going to be bad as well because he's just a complete unknown, even more so than Ivy. Like, Ivy's got the injury thing, whereas Asingbe, like, he's still young. Maybe he's obviously still got a lot of time to get back, but who the hell knows? Like, he's
no one knows.
No one knows. So, like, to me,
That's okay.
I can't bank on him in any way, shape, or form. It may be an upside thing. It might be a nice little surprise that comes down the line, or it could flame out. I don't know. I have no idea about Asingbe. I'm not going to pretend like I do. Let's wait and see. Let's see what happens with him. But I certainly wouldn't be banking on him doing anything next season. It might be a nice upside play that surprises people. That's the optimistic side of it. But anything more than that, you can't get me to commit any strongly on Asingbe at this point.
Yeah, and I promise I'm not being a kiss ass, but I just wanted to defend my guy a little bit because he is like one of my prospects. Mark's opinion is the correct take on it. But I will say, I mean, it's just like, I think the guy is going to be Nicholas Batum and he could be Marko Simonovic. You legitimately just never know. You spin the wheel and you see. Yeah. But I will say, Mark, I know you got limited time. So I do want to say something everyone was dying to just hear you say on the pod. What's like a nice thing you can say about Fred when you just think about C-Red Fred as a guy? Like, if you're just like, man, Jesus, the nicest thing about C-Red Fred, like what comes to mind? Because you guys have known each other for such a long
good
time.
Songs. Good. I'm not Mark, but I'll say good. I miss Kobe White as an anthem. So especially with each good game that he has for Charlotte, that anthem just gets more justified every day.
Yeah, this is going to be bad radio because I have to sit here and actually ponder that question for a while. No one wants to.
No, I know you're joking and you're just filling with time. I wanted to have you leave on a good note, and I know nothing makes you happier than the time you spend with Fred.
Well, look, I enjoy going through. This is probably the best thing about Fred. I enjoy the fact that he's prepared to put his crazy takes online for us to review and to mock. And he's generally pretty good spirited. So
yes.
I enjoy the fact that he's willing to put his nonsense out there for all us to see. It's good. It benefits us. It benefits me. I feel like I was put on this planet to be, his personal antichrist in some respects. But at the same time, I do wonder, like I was listening to his last podcast with Doug, the Big Red Bus, And his kids are over an age now where they certainly understand what podcasts are, and they probably got their own personal Spotify accounts. And I was just sitting there listening to this podcast, thinking, man, I hope his kids aren't listening to this. So it is beneficial for me that Fred is willing to put himself out there like this, but I do wonder what level of shame and harm that he has put on his family by being such a public figure as a D-level celebrity in Chicago. So that's probably the nicest thing I can say about Frederick.
You keep it real.
I appreciate them. I appreciate that. What a great. It might make the tombstone.
Oh, there we go. There's our boy Peck.
Very good stuff. Oh, look at this. Those best. Why do you think I'm wearing them? They're empty. They're actually perfect. I don't even need them.
Yeah, Fred, you do have some big coach aura going on right now. I really like it with the zip up and the glasses. Feel like we're looking at Coach Fred right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This was my coaching back in the day when I was helping my son. Can I talk about what I like about Mark?
Of course, we were all waiting for that. Unlike Mark, we knew you didn't need any prodding on that. So yeah.
No, I actually think Mark is very, very intelligent. That's why
Yes.
I think he's a very smart bull. I do respect his knowledge. He is wrong a lot, which is like shocking to me. And I think the thing about Mark that I really respect is he learns. He's changed. He's learned to adapt. And when I give him these thoughts that he first like kind of ridicules, you can see it's stuck with him, and he's kind of developed it, and then he's evolved into a much closer approximation of myself than I of him. But it's what's great is that we've come together in some ways. And Mark is really good at highlighting. I always free to admit I'm wrong 7% of the time. He highlights those very well and keeps me grounded and humble. But overall, I think I do respect his knowledge as a Bulls fan. Although he does have some crazy takes. Do you remember when he used to wax poetic about Wayne Selden? Remember Wayne Selden?
Well, would you call him Fred? Wayne Selden good?
Yeah, Wayne Selden good and Ryan Archie not in the NBA. He used to talk about that guy like he was like some superhero. Oh my God, that guy sucked. I was at a Windy City game. First of all, that shows you how irritating it is with the Bulls. They had Ryan Archie not in the NBA as like a 29-year-old playing, and he shot an air ball with like 2 minutes left, an air ball in a game at Windy City. And I was just like, God, I wish Mark was here to see this. This would have been so great as I turned over to him and said, did you see that, Mark? You see this guy?
Archie Diacono, he walked so Yuki Kawamura could run. Well, let's respect
facts. Mark, I agree 1,000,000% because the Yuki Mania insanity. Arch was the first dude. Like I saw Yuki getting crazy after he drew like an offensive foul a couple games ago, and it just reminds me of Arch, And that's what people got to remember too. Not to hijack it, but like just because we say that Arch is not a legitimate NBA player, it doesn't mean that you guys don't have every right to be excited about seeing this dude who's for the fans, for the people. Being for the fans and for the people in a G League star is okay. It doesn't mean that he's a great NBA player, but it's okay to have your guilty pleasure, if you will, with Yuki Mania and Arch. But no, I think that's what
I don't know about that.
You think he's an NBA player, Fred?
What's that?
You think Yuki's an NBA player?
Yuki, I'm 100% behind. I think he's a fantastic facilitator. I think
wow, this is about Arch. You don't think Arch was an NBA guy, Fred?
No, I don't think Arch was an NBA. I think Yuki's a far better facilitator.
Could Yuki do it in the Big East, Fred? I don't know.
Archie, Villanova. Well, he was on a great team, obviously, too. So he had great players around him. But the fact of the matter is, Yuki's a better player, I think, than Ryan Archie, not in the NBA. Even though the whole reason Archie was like a big thing is because he was like a teen beat guy. He'd bring in the teen girls and Mark, and everybody be like excited about him because he's a halfway decent looking guy. Yuki's actually got skills that are tangible, and he plays hard. Give me a break, man. You remember that Dope Boylan? How you always talk about what a great player. Ryan Archie. As soon as I saw that,
Arch had hustle. He was like a baby Kirk Heinrich. He was just too short.
That's it.
Oh, well, do you want me to go on about Kirk Heinrich for a while? Yeah, talk about the most overrated.
You didn't like the captain Kirk?
I didn't like him shooting 38% in his first 2 years in the league from the field, and I didn't like his 07-08 season, which was the biggest calamity of all, and he got zero of the blame for it. 06-07, Kirk Heinrich was really solid. 44% from the field, 40% from three. His next year was such an abomination that people never talk about. And thank God it was an abomination because of that horrible year. It led to the Bulls taking Rose instead of Beasley. But I got in so many arguments with these dopey Heinrich fans back in 07, 08. Like, why do we want to draft Rose? We already got a point guard in Kirk Heinrich. I mean, the guy, what an overrated player. You know, he was so good that in order to get him off the roster, we had to attach a number 1 pick for him. That's why, with his bloated salary. Boy, I'm losing probably a lot of fans as I get into.
How can you be an Okoro fan but then hate Kirk Heinrich? How does that compute in one's head?
It's well, Okoro doesn't have the massive team beat fan base that Heinrich had that I never understood. I was always irritated because at the time Heinrich got drafted, there was this huge there was complete apathy by that point. This was like 6 years after Krause, post Jordan. So I'd have a lot of these conversations at work where people would come up to me and like, Fred, I know you're the only, diehard Bulls fan left in the country. What do you think of Kirk? This looks like a good thing. He had 18 points last night. I'm like, yeah, he was 6 of 18. He shot 33%. He sucked. He had 6 turnovers. Those are like the conversations I had, and I got so angry about it over and over again. And then when the Bulls drafted Ben Gordon and Dang, who were much better than him, Kirk was still held in this like high regard. Like, oh my God, if I hear another person tell me we should retire his number, that person immediately, they're dead to me. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. If you think Kirk Heinrich deserves his number retired over like a Joakim Noah or Tony Kukoc, and I understand people love it because he played hard. He was a smart player. He sucked when it mattered most. Look at his playoff stats in 07 when we won 6 games. His playoff stats sucked. He was a joke. Go look it up now. I'm getting angry and sick because I had all these conversations, and maybe I shouldn't. I wrote a song about Kirk Heinrich that's coming out in the next couple of weeks. You're going to love this one. And it's about my what happened to me when I got in an argument with a 13-year-old boy at the United Center. I sat down next to this spoiled 13-year-old and his father, and the kid was just yelling, Kirk, Kirk. And I finally said, will you be quiet? Will you be quiet? I'm trying to watch the game. And the whole song is about what happened. I had to explain to him about Kirk's shot percentage, how he 2 years. Do you realize, I love how people say Kirk's the greatest. Kirk played with the Bulls, and then we traded him. And then he left in 2010 to 2012. Then he comes back. It just so happens those bookended careers, our 2 best years were with him off the roster. But he was so damn important. Whew. Boy, I better calm down. I'm sorry if I offended any of the Kirk people here.
Well, no,
ours was Kirk Light, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely true.
I can't think of the last time someone said to me, go look up Kirk Heinrich's playoff stats in 07. Go do it right now.
well, look, coming back to my point around the things that I love about Frederick, or nice things. Yes. He's so easy to rile up. You just gotta say a few trigger words like Kirk Heinrich or Ryan Archidiakono or whatever it may be, Jim Boylan, certain things, and that'll just trigger him, and he'll go off on a rant for the next 12 minutes. So that's another thing that I appreciate about Fred. Again, it's connected to what I said before, that he just makes it he's very transparent, very easy to read. You understand where you sit with Frederick or what his thoughts are at a point in time. But yeah.
I still remember Reinsdorf in 2012. This is what the most angry I've ever been at Jerry Reinsdorf. 2012. This is like after we won 60 games. We won 50 games in a strike-shortened year, and there's an interview with Reinsdorf, and what does he say? Do you have any regrets? I regret we got rid of Kirk. And I'm like, you dope. We got rid of Kirk? Like, the whole reason we got that carcass off the roster, we were able to sign the entire Bulls bench because we got rid of him. We signed Corver, all these great guys that were huge as part of that roster, and you're complaining that we got rid of Kirk? You idiot. That was, and then what happened then? We got rid of Corver, we re-signed Kirk, and it all went downhill. Oh, man. Kirk's 07 playoff stats weren't that bad. Let's look it up right now. I'm looking it up. Hold on. You do some talking, Mark, so I can look this up.
I was going to say, I suggest we pivot to a different topic. I don't think the people really give a crap about Kirk Heinrich's playoff stats in.
Well, I was just thinking, I do not want to run into old man Fred at Josh Giddey's jersey retirement ceremony at the United Center, whatever, 20, 30 down the road. That is going to be a miserable man just yelling, triple doubles don't count.
I like Josh. I'm an idiot now. I've come around on him. But we got to admit, don't you have some fear deep down that this is a little bit Trae Young-ish, like a bizarro Trae Young in terms of the great stats, but not necessarily the great results? Aren't you worried about that Kirk? At all? What?
Who's bizarro Trae Young?
Well, I'm saying like.
Oh, Giddey?
Giddey. Giddy's, I don't want to say, I call him Bizarro Trae Young in that.
Oh, that's
On the
my first time.
defensive end, you have to work around him a little bit. You know what I mean? You have to work
No,
around
that's
him.
actually
You got to
that's
make up
actually a
for a lot
great-
of room with Giddey.
But I think it's different just because the one, and I mean, maybe this is just me trying to create reasons for the Bulls to need AJ DeBansta, my favorite prospect from the draft.
Rainbow
But
face.
Giddey is interesting because he's not I don't know what's the right term. He's not fleet of foot. He's not the most agile guy. I don't think I want him trying to stay in front of Trae Young, who you just brought up.
No.
But I do like Giddey if he's trying to guard Royce O'Neal, let's just say. So
especially as he gets older and puts on more size.
Exactly. And with the makeup of that, you know what Giddey brings offensively? He's a good offensive player. Defensively is where you're worried about him. I think because of his skill set, if you can get bigger wings, some guys who can guard smaller players well, you can give yourself an interesting alignment defensively. DeBansta is someone who's not very good defensively, but he does scale down well. Shout out to No Ceilings. Those guys do great work over there. But he can guard point guards, shooting guards, smaller guys decently well. I think if you have him on the court, maybe you have an alignment where Giddey's guarding some more wing players. You have some other wings guarding smaller players. And then everybody on the floor can grab a rebound, and you're a team predicated on the fast break anyway. So I kind of see the vision. It's always going to be a team that's based around the offense rather than the defense. But I think because Giddey's so uniquely big for a playmaker, if you can keep surrounding him with bigger guys, you have a team where you can just switch, get the rebound, everybody go.
Yeah, and just looking it up, Heinrich in 07 playoffs shot 35%. 35% from the field, 38% 35% against the Heat that we won in 4 games. Thanks a lot, Kirk, for all your help. And then against Detroit, he shot 38%. He sucked. And I've always said Kirk Heinrich is like this guy where all the guys in the 100 level can look at their kid and say, hey, look, Johnny, if you work real hard too, you can make it to the NBA. I don't got any time for that nonsense. Pound sand if you think like he was the most important player in those teams. Ben Gordon was better. Luol Deng was better. I'm sorry. Where were we? I'm sorry.
See how easy he is to trigger?
Good.
I won't mention the name Tibbs because he'll just go on another rant for the next 35 minutes. I ain't got time for that. But
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What do you feel about Tibbs? You didn't like Tibbs? That's my boy.
No, all right. Here we go about Tibbs. I like Tibbs. First of all, Tibbs is given this credit like, oh, the team sucked. The team sucked, and Tibbs came here and saved everybody. No, that's not true. 2010. Hold on, I got to say, we're guilty. Hold on a second. Derrick Rose was an all-star in 2010 before Tibbs. He was an all-star under Vinny Del Negro, who sucked, who was a terrible coach. I agree. Taj Gibson was first-team all-rookie under Vinny Del Negro. When Noah dunked in game 6 against the Celtics, that was under Del Negro. He walked into this team with this ton of talent and he was a great coach. I'm not denying that. But the fact that he ran these guys into the ground, let's just start here. He played Jimmy Butler 48 minutes in a preseason game. That's happened.
That's a flaw.
This happened. That's beyond the flaw. Like if I was
I
going
agree.
to the team and you play a guy, I don't care if you invented the game. I don't care if you're James Naismith. You play a guy 48 minutes in a preseason game, you come into my office, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. I never want to see you again. That happened in 2014. This didn't happen in 1960. 2014, he played Jimmy Butler 48 minutes in a game. And everybody's like, oh, Tibbs. Oh, he was such a great guy. He wanted to draft Draymond Green. Oh, yeah? You know who else he wanted to draft? McDermott. He wanted McDermott. He never talks about that. McDermott's a little underrated, I think, too, to be honest with you. He was in the league for a long time.
I do agree with you, Fred. I think that was my biggest gripe with – we're going to get back to you, but like that was my biggest gripe because I didn't start watching the Bulls until that Thibodeau team, until D Rose came in his rookie season. I got to whatever. But the point is that I do agree with you that he came into it and he inherited a good team. But in my opinion, I feel like Tibbs maximized that team better than Vinny Del Negro would have. And his biggest flaw for sure, which is what I hated too, was overplaying guys. Like me and my childhood friends, we would always joke about he's putting guys in the hospital. And then he literally did put Luol Deng in the hospital. So like I feel like that was Tibbs' biggest flaw is
No, he's got a bigger one. He's got a bigger one. Here's what it is. Let me explain what his bigger flaw was. He starts this bum Keith Bogans because why?
Man.
He thinks he's got toughness.
But he's like the Okoro now, Fred.
He flexes. He looks really tough. Oh, don't. Mark
Okoro is the modern day Keith Bogans, man.
No. Keith
Bogans
was 6'3", 195 pounds.
Was 6'6".
No.
Fresh out of prison, looking like he's
he looks like he's all
Breaking Bad.
Everywhere he walks, he puts his Keith Bogans used to dip his arms in butter, arm butter before the game, and he'd come out and he's like flexing, and he comes out like he's really tough. That guy sucked. And so what does he do? He has a future all-star on the bench and Kyle Korver sitting on the bench until the middle of the second quarter every game. And all you had to do is have Kyle Korver out there starting at the two to spread the floor for Derrick Rose. But no, I want to be tough. I want all this nonsense. God almighty, does it drive me nuts.
But what would have happened if we got a better team around him too, though? Because I feel like that team, the year that Rose got injured, was the year that we like solidified ourselves as like, okay, the front office knows now it's time to surround these guys with adequate players. So what would have happened if D Rose would have never got injured? We might have had better lineups out there. But I do agree with you. There were times where I'd be like, man, come on, dude, like get Keith Bogans' ass out of here. But it was just, I feel like, for the defensive purposes in the starting lineup. The same as we use Okoro for.
I'm telling you, I just rewatched the Miami 2011 series. First of all, the Bulls, that was a 5-game series. It was so much closer than anyone realizes. We won game 1, we lost 4 straight. 2 of those games went in overtime. Game 5, we had a 13-point lead with like 5 minutes left. And he kept the same freaking lineup in. When you see them just contracting, he refused to put Korver out there. And I'm just like, dude, like all you had to do was watch that series. And everybody's going to be like, a lot of people will say, well, Korver really struggled in that series. Doesn't matter. The mere fact when he was standing out on the court, you made it 4-on-4 for Rose. You opened up the court for him space-wise, and he was able to attack the rim and do a lot better. He didn't do him any favors. Dang was awful in that series. Dang was awful for pretty much the playoffs, but especially that series against Miami. And so he had no one really stretching the floor for him. I blame a lot of that series loss on Tibbs. And people are going to disagree me on this, but I have the notes and the goods on this argument, and I will challenge anyone, especially you, Mark, especially you, because I've watched them all over again. That Bulls team in 2012 could have won a title. I'm certain of it. And not only that, they could have won it in 2011 with some slight changes and more Korver and less Keith Bogans and his arm butter. And let's put Omer Asik out there for an insane amount of minutes. God almighty. Drives me nuts. But he's the greatest. He's the greatest coach of all time. Okay.
So far. Speaking of that, though, we do got to have Mark's got to get out of here. We're going to stay on with Fred, but yeah, Mark's got to get out.
Do you really have to get out, Mark? Why don't you stick around for a little longer?
There's only so much I can take of you listening.
We got to have another meeting on Doug Jonas next
time. What time is
it? Mark knew what he was doing. He wanted to play the hits real quick, so he wanted to bring. Mark knew he missed the Tibbs rant.
Well, look, I just said the word, and you went off
with Doug. If you guys are down.
I'm sorry, Mark. Do you have any final thoughts, Mark? Do you want to go on talk about Tibbs at all?
Well, thank you to Michael and to Guilty for having me on. I appreciate it. It's good to catch up with you both.
We're gonna have to do a part 2 because I had a lot more questions for you, and I wanted to give you so many more flowers, man.
Well, I know that's okay. Look, I'm happy to come on in future, but good to connect with you both again. It's been a long time. I've known you both for a long time. So yeah, good to reconnect. Good to see you both I was going to say in person, not necessarily in person, but through the powers of the internet. So yeah, appreciate you having me on. Less appreciative of the fact that I had to join with Frederick, but nonetheless, Brett, I suppose it was good to see you too.
Just maybe.
Always good to see you, Mark. Always good to see you. We'll keep in touch. I got a couple good songs about Mark coming out too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll talk about those. Yeah, Mark, you'll have to tune into the rest of this later, but we'll do a part 2 because I've been talking to Salim and Lero and Chris, so we'll do a big episode.
That'd be awesome
during this. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one, and then you and Doug can come on. We can fit like 10 people on this motherfucker, so we'll have a good time.
Well, look, if Frederick's on with anyone, he's gonna steal the airwaves. Let's be
as he should. I mean, listen to I Miss Kobe White. We're in the midst of a story.
What a banger that is!
It is, man. I sing that shit in the shower.
Well, look, that goes back to my point before. This is good for us that he's willing to put out this level of content, but for his daughter and his son, they're listening.
I have
to
a
this
song.
thinking,
I'll
my
announce it
dad
here. I
doing?
have a song
My
coming
dad
out
is
about-
70 years old and he's making AI songs about random Bulls players.
They're
What is
not
this guy's problem?
AI. I write the song. I'm going to send you the demos, Mark, and you can hear.
They are AI.
There's
You
AI
are stealing
enhancements
people's
with the
energy
drums.
and water to write terrible Bulls songs. That is what you were doing. You were
That's not what I'm
stealing
doing.
future.
You know, I just saw an
generations'
article
energy and
about
water.
that with AI affecting water, so I'll have to look into that now after this episode. I just saw an article on Twitter, but I saved it in my bookmarks. Huh? Interesting.
AI is ruining the world, and Frederick is just contributing to that just so he can make terrible songs about Kobe White. And
It's also helping the world. It's making it more efficient for us. And listen,
we wouldn't have our Miss Kobe White without it.
Yeah, I have these exactly. I have these great songs written that I write on guitar. I don't have the time to go play drums on it and bass on it. AI serves as my producer and adds those things to it. Mark,
don't have the time or don't have the talent. Which one?
Oh my god!
Oh my god, that's not true.
Perhaps both.
You see, part 2 is going to be really good.
Yeah, I think we've had enough of Mark. Have a good day, Mark. Enjoy it.
Thanks so much for coming on, Mark. Man, you the man, bro.
Thanks again, Mark.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Take it easy.
Have a good one, brother. Good to see you, man. All right, guys. What do we have left to talk about? Now the party starts finally.
The party, the real party. Yeah. No, it definitely sucks having to have Mark leave. And then like I said, we're still trying to get like this all figured out, how to do the layout. But I think it would be cool to have like a part 2 to this episode and have Doug on there with you. We got Undisputed asking about Joe Cowley. I don't know if Cowley will come on here, but like it would be cool to have like you and Doug and then Mark and the guys like Salim, Chris, and Lyra all on, and we could have just a great discussion during the summer.
I see something about Cowley. Like I see that idiot Cowley. I think Cowley. Well, first of all, I know him personally. Like he is really deep down. He's a good guy.
Cowley's the man. That's what me and Mike talk about. He's the man.
Yeah, and he'll engage, and I think a lot of the nonsense he says, 95% of it, maybe not that high, 80% of it is just he's trying to get a rise out of you. But you know, I think he's as a human, he's really a good dude. You know,
he's doing his job really well. It's just given like he knows how to get you to tune in. You see every tweet that he writes when he puts out an article. I just started writing articles this year, so I've been observing those who write articles, and I learned a lot from Cowley. Every time that Cowley puts out a tweet for his articles, you know, he'll say something that's divisive, you know, that's going to grab your attention, and then he'll end it with read it because he knows you're going to read it. But like, that's what I tell people at the same, like my boy Undisputed, like Undisputed is my boy, but he gets so triggered by guys like Peck, who's a great Bulls. I don't want to just call him a podcaster or a content creator. Like Peck is a staple in the Bulls community, him and Big Dave. But guys like that, who just
they're great.
They speak more realistic about the team and not drinking the Kool-Aid. We need those kind of guys in the community who are not always going to be positive because that's what makes you a real fan. Like they got to call the team out. And I think Peck said it on our show with me and Mike. He says, don't fans want people who are going to question the front office? You know, like a guy like Cowley who's working for the Sun Times. Don't you want somebody like that close to the team who's going to call them out and going to call out our tourists? So I appreciate Cowley so much for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I will say, especially when you're covering it, people forget. I mean, when I say people, not you guys, just your run-of-the-mill social media, yell at the cloud type fans. Obviously, you're building relationships with these guys, the front office. So, you know, you can't just like bludgeon guys with opinions unless they're just being awful every single day. Something I will say about Cowley just being on the beat for the first time this year in earnest. He is like a lot of people complain about man, why didn't the reporter just ask that question? Or I know it's awkward. Everybody wanted the guy to just, you know, say that. Something I'll give him credit for. Cowley will be that reporter. He often is that reporter. I do remember early on, I think it might have even been media day when everyone was wondering how Vucevic felt about maybe being on the trade block. I think Cowley was the first person to just outright go, you know, hey, did you want to be traded? You know, so there is some value in being blunt and direct without being, you know, rude. So while we were just on that subject, I do think that's something he doesn't get enough credit for. But whenever you're covering a major team in a big city, you're going to get a lot of hate, I will say. So that kind of comes with the territory.
I say that Cowley does a great job, like you were just saying, Mike. He doesn't say what you want to hear. He says what you need to hear. And that's the thing. I mean, he had a tweet. I think he actually quote tweeted Fred's tweet. I forgot what the tweet that Fred was saying was, but Kali quote tweeted it and said, "I don't celebrate growth. I expect it." And again, it's just as I get older and become more of a man myself, you just appreciate people like that who they might tell you something that it might hurt your feelings. It might make you think about things or think about yourself more. It might cause you to reflect, but it's all in the name of being better and growth. Like I think that as a society that we conflate being positive with being good, and there's times where being positive is counterproductive, and you need some negativity. You need to get a reality check, in order for the good. And I think again, people like Kali, they don't get enough appreciation for going against the grain and keeping it real. Because I guarantee if we had a good team out there and we were doing good things, it'd be a completely different story. He's just holding people accountable. And
also, I don't know why when you said that, I just thought you like Callie tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and then it just made me think. And then Shams just tells you literally what he hears. Just telling you what he hears.
Back.
You know what? I do think though our relationship as like kind of Bulls podcasters with the beat writers is really important, because this hit me recently, and I don't want to give like an undeserved level of self-importance to us. Like,
no, you're the man, Fred. Seriously.
Especially Mark, I don't want to give that to. But to you guys, I'll give a lot. But this kind of like hit me recently. Like a couple of years ago, I was talking with Joe about media access, and he basically said something like, if you don't hunt, you don't get the meat or something. He was kind of, his implication was, we're the guys who are kind of like pushing the stories and the content for you to talk about. And like the implication was it's dependent on their work. And to a certain extent, like he's absolutely right. Like they're in the locker room, they're on the team. And in Chicago, I think we're blessed to have really good beat writers. I think they're all fantastic, especially him, Casey, a GOAT. I mean, just everybody, even Athletic, we got Joel's awesome, the whole team over there. You obviously too, Michael. And I can go on and on. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, and we're dependent as podcasters on them. But I think there's also kind of like a downside to that proximity to them, because when you're close to players, like guys that you respect and that you like, who by all accounts are great people, it becomes harder to give like an honest commentary on their performance. And I think we're actually better at that. Like this year, for example, Kevin Herter, like by all accounts, he's a fantastic dude. Teammates love the guy. He's a great guy. The beat writers love him. But I thought he was terrible at his job this year. Like, which is, he's got one primary role: extend the floor with his shot and hit threes. And he shot 31% on high volume from three. It sucks. That's his job, his primary job. He failed miserably at it. And somehow the beat writers were all, I felt, kind of like defending him. Instead, they'd be given he does the little things, he rebounds, he fits the system. That's all fine. Doesn't matter. Well, you're not doing the one thing that you were really tasked with here with the Bulls. Same thing with Vooch. Like, he's a great guy. Everybody I've talked to loves Vooch, and he seems like a great human being. He's an all-star human being. But when he left, there's like total rewriting by the beat writers of the Chicago experience here with Vooch. I mean, there was a year he shot 29% from three. He was so freaking bad and an abomination on both sides of the court that season. I think it was 2 years ago. There's no excuse for it. Even the year we won 46 games, he shot 31% from three. That crushed our ceiling. Like, our roster desperately needed a big to extend the floor for Levine and DeRozan. And our starting center, who was brought in as a stretch five, he was hitting it at a 40% rate with Orlando, failed miserably at it. So that's not a small issue. That's like a team breaking issue. And, to his credit, he came back and played awesome, for large swaths of the season in the last couple of years. But I mean, my gosh, when he left, the people were acting like, oh, he does all this great stuff. The guy was a horrible interior defender, horrible as a center. He would pout and get in fights with the stanchion if he didn't get the ball in the post, and inefficient offense. Like, come on, man. Let's be honest about the Vooch experience. I think with
the Kevin Herter experience, just to speak to it, you do make a good point. It was a lot of nice talk about Kevin from the writers. I think that goes down to the fact that, I mean, you touched on it. He was a very nice guy, obviously. Always kind to reporters, always had time. He was doing the little things in terms of trying hard on defense, trying to rebound, be a decent passer. But you made the honest assessment that, again, your main primary goal as a 3-and-D guy is to hit threes. And he had perhaps the worst, I think, shooting season of his career, or at least going back to his rookie year, he probably hadn't shot that poorly from three. But I do think the reason reporters maybe weren't as hard on him, at least locally, was because the writing was kind of already on the wall that he was probably going to be on the way out at the trade deadline. Which, of course, was the ultimate indication that he wasn't living up to his job, his end of the bargain, is that AK, was not bashful about getting him out of town. So I think that's probably why the criticism wasn't as big on Kevin. I will say, just to touch on, you had said something interesting about, it's sometimes hard to criticize these guys when you're getting to know everybody, or at least you're around the team. That is something I appreciate about Billy Donovan. And I think Casey Johnson has spoke to this point as well. I'm someone who, enjoys Billy as a coach, so I'm always giving him a little bit of credit anyway. But I will say, in all seriousness, he will explain any decision you question him on, even if it's something he doesn't really want to talk about. But I mean, if you ask the question in a press conference, he will give you a clear and concise answer as to why. And you can hate every part of the answer and disagree with it, but he will tell you why he did what he did. Things like playing Yabusele over Buzelis, I remember late in the game, was something that people brought up, and he simply said, he thought it was the best move to win the game, which, again, you don't necessarily want to hear that. But again, Billy's job, the head coach's job, isn't to lose. That's a front office roster construction thing. But Billy always gives you an honest answer and will explain his decisions, which makes it a little bit easier to criticize him. So I do appreciate him for that honesty.
That's what makes him real, is that whether you agree with him or not, he's explaining to you exactly why he does what he does. And for me, again, I have not been the biggest Billy Donovan fan. I can appreciate the man. I think Billy Donovan is he's a great man. I grew up on watching Mafia stuff, and The Sopranos. The classic line in Sopranos is, whatever happened to the guys like Gary Cooper, the strong silent type. To me, Billy Donovan represents that kind of mold of a man that's like a dying breed in our society these days. It's a strong silent type. And I think that he's an amazing man. I just don't agree 100% with the way he coaches the team. Now, Mike, you've talked about it at length. You know how our Discord gets, man. Billy Donovan does the best he can with the roster that AK gives him. So it's like two different, because it makes you think, okay, well, what if you actually gave Billy the kind of roster that's best for the philosophy that he has, then what's he look like? But it seems like we'll never know, because it seems like those two are on two separate pages. I mean, even going back to the Derek Queen news, when you heard Billy say Derek Queen was a guy I really liked, I like his skill set, and then we go the opposite way with Noah. So with Billy, man, I definitely do think that he's a great dude. I think he's a great coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach for a reason. But for my personal preference, I just want someone different, man. I like guys with more fire. See, look, Mark's saying, damn, I had to go through all Fred's nonsense and miss the Billy chat. Well, we're doing a part 2. I already DM'd Doug Tonis and said we got to do a part 2 with him on there. But, it's just, I don't think that it's an indictment on Billy to say that you want to see a different style of coach in his position. I like a guy like Joe Mazzulla. I want to find the Ben Johnson version of basketball for this Bulls team, especially now that we're young. So I want a more fired up coach. But it's not to say that Billy's a bad coach. Billy's a great coach. I think Billy needs to go to a team that has a better roster than we do. Truly.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it's a fair, first of all, I'm a Billy fan. I'll be upfront with that. I think you mentioned Michael, his press conferences. I listen to every one of his press conferences. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I agree with you. I don't always agree with his decisions, but when you hear him explain it, he'll explain it, and it's well thought out, and he knows. I think he's very good at identifying what is good about this team and what is bad, what is missing with this team. And Billy Donovan, if you look at his history, I first of all, as a player, I remember reading the Rick Pitino book and was talking about him as a player. It was clear this guy had something special as being a leader and being a coach on the court. This is going back to the 90s. And then he goes to Florida, wins 2 national championships. Obviously, a fantastic freaking coach, proven with that. Then he goes to Oklahoma City. He got to a Western Conference final in the real conference, and it was a legit challenge to the Warriors. I think he was in the playoffs every year at Oklahoma City for 5 years. He had a much different team in that 5th year, completely different roster. And this is where I really these are the type of coaches I like. There's 2 types of coaches in the world. There's the coaches who ask their talent to adapt to their system, and there's coaches that adapt their system to the talent. You can have success with both. Like Bobby Knight was one of those guys. Talent comes in, you're doing my system. Thibodeau's like that. I don't think that works as well in the modern era, and I think that he's done an excellent job. If you look at it, we led the league in mid-range jump shots for 3 years when DeMar DeRozan, the ultimate in terms of skills as a mid-range jump shooter. And then he said, you know what? I don't think that's our strength. We're going to totally redo it. A completely different team, fast pace. I think that's really hard, and I think it's really hard to do, and I think he's done it pretty well. So Billy Donovan, to me, when you look at the guys we traded at the deadline. We traded Io. He's been a bench player for the Wolves. Obviously, we all love Io. I think he's great. He's a bench player for the Wolves. I know he's starting now that Ant's hurt. But he's a good player, but he's still coming off the bench. Kobe, he's been averaging like 20 minutes for the Hornets, a bench player for the Hornets. He was like our first or second best player, starter here. Vooch, bench player, starter, focus of the offense here. Julian Phillips is in the G League. Kevin Huerter's out of the rotation, or at the end of the rotation for the Pistons. He's getting a little bit more time now. Dalen Terry was cut, 2-way contract with Philly. These are the guys that we moved. I mean, talk about a dearth of talent. Like, these guys were huge parts of our rotation.
Yes.
So, like, when the analysis is, what's the bigger issue? Is it Billy Donovan or the talent in this roster? I don't even think it's debatable. It's the talent. But he gets so much of the blame. Like, things would be so much better if we had a different coach. And I just don't see it. I really don't. Like, I do appreciate – I understand why people are frustrated with him. And I do buy that argument that maybe – like, what is he doing? The arguments I generally hear are, well, he's keeping Modest out shooting a mid-range jump shot. Mid-range jump shot's the worst shot in basketball. I think Modest is struggling now. What I want Modest to work on this summer is not his mid-range jump shot. He's shooting 32% over the last 14 games from three. He's down to 35.9% from three. Everything depends on how good he is at the three-point line. Guys will come out and attack him a lot more than he can attack that. Get better at the three, not get better at the mid-range jump shot, which is the worst shot in basketball. I mean, you mentioned
actually, I was going to say, I like really quickly the point both of you guys kind of have made here, because it comes back to why I think you could almost take Billy Donovan's name and just replace it with generic coach, because I don't think the Bulls need to make any changes at coach yet, because they're not at the point where you're thinking, hey, who's the coach to really bring this group of talent together? You're still trying to find the group of talent to kind of get to that Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr point where it's like, let's bring in the guy to really take the next step. You're still trying to just like build the foundation. But something that just really makes me think about that, when I think about like Billy with this team, is like, it's about communication, not between the players, but between the coach and the front office. Billy was notoriously anti-tank when he came in here. I saw one of the comments, I think it was Rob, who was like, you're never going to hear AK or Billy say that they're trying to lose. So Billy, I've explained this to plenty of people. Billy and the players are legitimately, I'm not joking, they're not trying to lose. They're trying to win every game. It's their job. It's their livelihood. They can lose. They're trying to win every game. It's the management's job to put the players on the roster where when the coach is playing guys, no matter what, you're probably going to lose that game. Or say this guy is injured and he can't play. Coach and the player is always going to try to win. But Billy and AK have to be on the same page. And it's like, Billy is a chef and he's like, I want to make Chinese food. And then AK brings Lay's potato chips and hot dogs. What is he going to do? What are we making here? So I think once they start, he's bringing the right ingredients to the table, we'll really be able to actually criticize them. But like you talked about, we heard Billy talk about Queen, like almost like it was a player he expected the Bulls to draft versus what they actually ended up doing. And if they're not on the same page in terms of how they're building the roster, then eventually someone is going to have to go. And it really, at that point, won't matter whether it's AK or Billy. You're just going to need two people, I think, to be on the same page. And I think this draft is a good chance for them to get on that same page and really bring it together. So I don't think a different coach would change anything, because, again, is AK going to be drafting and signing the type of players that coach wants to build his team? People have criticized, for example, the Bulls having so many guards. Billy Donovan loves guards. AK might just be trying to work with his coach, appease his coach. It might be a good thing. So it's one of those things where I think no matter what, doesn't matter who the coach is, Billy Donovan, JB Bickerstaff, Mike Malone, it can be Tibbs again. They're going to have to be on the same page with whoever's in that front office.
I think that's my biggest gripe with Donovan is the love of guards. So maybe, you know what? Maybe that's where my bias comes in, because I always like to tell myself is, oh, I don't have any bias, but I do. And I have a bias towards wings. I've been saying since Mark K was running the Bulls HQ. I've been saying it since I used to have to call into his podcast. When Justice Winslow was still a player, I said it back in 2019. It's a wings league. It's been trending that way for a long time. The most prolific players out here, because we're heading into an era. I mean, we're already there, but two-way potential is where it's at, and that's you get the most production out of that that philosophy from your wing players, or at least the most impactful production. So I've been calling for 7-8 years is to just get this team like the Toronto Raptors and be full of legitimate wings and then figure the rest out later. And I think that's my biggest gripe with Billy Donovan, is that he seems to go the complete opposite way, and he is in love with the small ball. He's in love with these guards. And I get it, because he wants to do the multi-ball handler system, which is smart. But I just feel like, man, dude, like, come on. We there. I mean, even I know everyone's out on P. Will, but I want to see P. Will get more minutes with a guy like Leonard Miller having his emergence. I'd rather see P. Will out there some nights, Fred, as opposed to Okoro. Like, see what you have there, especially in a season like this where we know we're not going to be winning these games, you know, every game. So, like, experiment. Give me a game where you got Giddey starting. Maybe even put Okoro at the 2 or Modest. P. Will at the 3, Leonard Miller at the 4, and then Jalen Smith at your 5. Like, I just want to see us utilize the size that we have on this roster so much more than Billy seems to want to. Billy loves his guards, and I think that's my biggest gripe with him. I'm not for the flux of guard play. It pisses me off.
I want to push back a little bit. I mean, he went with the 2 big lineup a little bit earlier this year. I don't think he has a predisposition to guards or wings. I mean, I know he loved playing in OKC with it. I think that's where that comes in, is, you know, that last year he played with the 3-guard lineup there. But, you know, before that, it wasn't any when you had Kevin Durant on the roster, he was playing Kevin Durant. It wasn't a lot of excess of guards. It was just, you know, I kind of feel like the reason he's playing guards is because the best players on the team are guards. Like the wings, if you look at the teams we've got, Patrick Williams sucks. He's been terrible his whole career here. He's probably our number 1 wing. There's been a dearth of wings, and that's on our front office. Like Dale and Terry, I consider him more of a wing than an actual guard.
Oh, he's a wing. People that would call him a guard used to confuse me. He's supposed to be like a point forward almost. And that's another thing. I feel like he was never used the right way here. You need Dalen at the 3 initiating the offense, bringing the ball up more. I mean, he's ass. You know, don't get me wrong, but like at least try to play your guys to your strengths.
I was gonna say we're getting lots of good comments now, so I wanted to touch on just like a few I saw quickly. I might have missed something, but definitely. So I will agree with Fred here. Shockingly, obviously, Fred waxes poetically about Okoro. Okoro's his guy, but I will say I'm down to play Okoro way more than Patrick Williams. I got in trouble last episode we did for trying to be positive about Patrick Williams, so I will stop. I'm
positive on Patrick Williams. We got to do it for our boy Kurtz.
I'll be positive on Patrick, but what he does offensively or defensively, you know, whatever.
He's too passive.
His contract is kind of wild, so maybe he's going to be around, maybe he's going to be dumped. But I wanted to touch on also Undisputed said Okoro is part of your core, though. That's why I want to play Okoro more than Patrick Williams, is because his contract will be expiring, I think, after next year, I believe. I do want him on the floor as much as possible, just to make a decision on him. You won't be able to know if you want to re-sign Okoro unless you see him out there with Giddey and Matas and get to make a better decision on, like Rob just said, Okoro can't be a starter, rotation guy at best. maybe he can be a starter. But again, you want him out there to sort of see that, although it seems like Billy has made up his mind on that. But I will say that's why I'm so excited for this draft. You guys talked about the wings versus guards things. I do think Billy is in love with, having like 3 guards out there if he can. I don't think that's a bad thing on the Bulls necessarily, again, because Giddey's 6'7", so it's usually not too big of an issue. I do think no matter what I say, you want your team to be the Boston Celtics. You want a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown. I don't think, not in terms of skill set, just 2 wings that you can build around. It's part of me being soft, giving AK credit. I think Matas is one of those 2. I think Matas is a wing, something me and Fred went back and forth about on his podcast. I think he's a wing player. So if you get one more of those players, I don't think it matters the other 3 guys on the court to a large extent. And you already know Giddey is going to be one of those 3 players behind Matas and another wing. So I think the Bulls are closer than people think to being like that frisky young team back in the play-in mix again. But again, you really have to hit on this draft pick. And it's why I'm so excited about this lottery. It's going to give them 4 to 5 good chances to really swing and get the type of wing you can put next to Matas and build a dynamic lineup to where Billy can still play 3 guards, but have, Matas and another wing player out there and maybe have some very small, fast lineups. So I'm optimistic that AK and Billy might not agree necessarily, but there might be a way for them to both get what they want at the end of the day in terms of having some bigger guys out there that can handle, but also still playing 2 to 3, small guards at all times.
I address a little bit of a Okoro slander. So
yeah, you're getting. I was waiting for you, Fred.
I can't take it anymore.
Okoro's
like one of these guys that it's really hard to measure like what he brings, but there are certain things that he does that are elite. One of them is screen navigation. Anyone you talk to who's been in the league or any coaches, I've talked to several also beat writers and coaches and scouts in the league about Okoro. What is it about Okoro that people like? Well, number one, every guy he guards shoots far worse from the field than he does in a normal game. So that's where he's elite at is reducing the field goal percentage of whoever he is guarding. And he is so good at navigating screens. And like somebody's comparing Patrick Williams shouldn't ever be put in the same sentence with Isaac Okoro. Number one, Isaac Okoro plays twice as hard as Patrick Williams. He has a motor. Patrick Williams doesn't. Number two, Patrick Williams takes half an hour to get around and navigate screens. That's not the case with Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro's a leader for anything. And I think Isaac Okoro can guard down very well. Like I think that's where he's ideally put. That's where he's best at, and that's why I think he's a good fit with Giddey, because Giddey can't guard any point guard in this team. And if you look at the history of Isaac Okoro, he guards point guards extremely well. He's been Brunson. It has fits with him. Like some of these smaller guards in the East. That's who you throw Okoro on, and he just shuts them down. So I don't agree with the comments that he's just an average defender. I think that's insane. But that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. He's not a disruptive defender where he's going to get a ton of steals. But what he is an absolute physical menace on guards. And he does also guard up, which is crazy. I mean, you've seen this year, they put him on Banchero, these lineup. Every time, he's the only plus defender on the team, really, now that Iowa's gone. He's the only plus elite perimeter defender on the team, period. So, he's been put in a really rough spot, and he was in that rough spot in Cleveland because Cleveland had, a bunch of small guards that couldn't guard anybody. Garland sucked defensively, and even Donovan Mitchell is not a great defender, so he'd get the most difficult assignment every night, and he doesn't need to shoot. But he was actually playing really well offensively, also scoring quite a bit in double digits. I just think he's a really good role player, and I think if we're going to focus on Okoro as a problem, I think that's kind of a little bit insane because he's not. He's paid accurately, and I think he's hopefully in the future for this team.
I think Mark would be shocked, Fred. That was as much as that was an impassioned Okoro defense, you did actually spit a lot of facts right there. I don't have much I can disagree with. That is exactly what Okoro is good at.
And I mean, I agree with you, Fred. So here's the biggest thing. I have to check myself. Because I'm very guilty of speaking pretty grandiose just to get the point across. You know what I mean? So I'll lack nuance in some of my takes. So a lot of the times where I've said Okoro is ass, it's kind of just more of an indictment on the team itself. So as I'm talking with nuance here with you, because you point out great things about Okoro, I think it's not just Okoro. You look at guys like Javonte Green or Alex Caruso. Again, these guys look worse in Chicago because they're playing out of position. I think that if the team was constructed properly and you had more defenders and you had better players with size and you slide Okoro down to the 2, then you're looking at a much different outlook on him. I think Okoro is a great, like you said, a POA defender. I think he's a great guy to plug in. I know you hate the comparison, but me and Walton both call him the Keith Bogans 2.0, 3.0 now. But if your team is constructed properly, Okoro's not your premier defender. He's not your best defender. He is a supplementary role player who is a damn good one at that. And you put him at the 2 on a team that's constructed properly. You don't put him at the 3 where he's trying to guard bigger dudes like we had to put Javonte Green through and Alex Caruso through. If your team is constructed properly, Okoro is playing the 2 for you, or if he is playing the 3, he's coming off the bench for you, and he's not your only line of defense. I mean, it's the same outlook I have on P. Will, where we knock P. Will, yes. But I think it's because this franchise was out here calling P. Will the next Claw, the next Kawhi. He ain't that. P. Will is he can be a great role player. But the problem is that we've been dependent on P. Will for so long to be a premier wing, where if your roster is constructed properly, P. Will's coming off the bench for you and being a great bench wing who can plug in at the 3 or the 4, give you some defense at, like with his size, or give you some 3-and-D potential on some nights. But you can't be dependent on P. Will. And I think it's the same for Okoro. You can't be dependent on Okoro, because I know a lot of guys who knock Okoro, it's because, he doesn't give you enough on offense. But he's really here for defense. He's here to be a glue guy and a stabilizing presence on defense, to be physical, maybe to draw some fouls and just make the defense. It might not show up in the stat sheet, but it's to make the defense think twice. I mean, the offense think twice on things. And I just think it's more of an indictment that our roster is not properly constructed than it is an indictment on Okoro himself. I think if we had a better roster construction, I mean, this goes into, because Mark kind of schooled me last week, not to get off topic, but like the mid-range conversation. And he said I think it was after Io's comments in Minnesota. And so I was one of the first people in the chat being like, what do you think about this, Mark? Io is literally saying that Billy prohibits the mid-range. And then Joel Lorenzi, shout out to him. He just gave me a follow on the stream. Shout out to you, man. But like he said, I think it's more of an indictment on this roster that Io is able to get off more mid-range shots because he has to do like Rudy Gobert setting the pick for him and open up space. Whereas in Chicago, we don't have a roster that's good enough to justify him even shooting mid-range because you're not getting open enough. It's not a good shot here. But in Minnesota, it is a good shot. It's just the same kind of thing we're dealing with our players, where guys might look worse here, but it's because they're playing out of position because the roster is constructed poorly. So I think if the roster was constructed better, Okoro himself is a guy that, shout out to Undisputed, he said he's a part of the core. I think if you can build the roster accordingly, then Okoro is a great piece for your core. He's still young. What is he, 24? He can still keep growing.
24, 25.
I really see him as a swole-ass 2 guard, man. Like I see Okoro as a swole-ass 2 guard that can slide to the 3 situationally, and that's the way that he should be used. And it's not his fault that he's come to Chicago, where the people that have size on his team are a guy like Lachlan Obrich. The talent isn't there, so guys have to play a position up constantly here. But if the team is constructed properly, I think Okoro is a very good piece to have.
Yeah, but like you said, those conversations are always about nuance, just because, again, there's no right or wrong answers, obviously. But I knew everyone was going to freak out with the IO comments, it's a big argument, the 3-point mid-range argument. But with the Bulls construction pre-trade deadline specifically, when you have Vucevic on the team as your offensive big, a guy who's going to either post up or primarily shoot the 3 and space the floor, although he can hit the mid-range. When you're working with Vooch in the pick and pop game, especially, Io could have taken more mid-range for sure, could have had more freedom to get that shot. But really, the biggest value to help his team was always, we know how great Io is at getting to the rim, getting all the way to the rim. So that way you're drawing that big man off of Vooch to give him more space to hit the 3-point shot, or create an open man just to, again, get the defense in rotation. So he could have taken more mid-range. But I think, like you said, roster construction by design.
Yes.
You want Vooch at the 3-point line, and you don't want Io stopping at the mid-range around the free throw line extended. You want him getting all the way to the rim just so your big man has more of an advantage. Now, if he was playing with Nick Richards, things might be a little different. Io might be getting that mid-range shot off more because Richards is rolling to the basket every time to hit the offensive glass. You're not worried about him popping. And I just think it all comes down to, like we said, back to AK, the big man upstairs, literally. It's about roster construction because Leonard Miller, player pretty much 2 pods in a row now, we've talked a decent amount about liking what he brings to the team. I'm not sure if he or Isaac Okoro are both going to be on this team long term because I don't really see a world where you can play those 2 players on the floor together. Okoro tries to space the floor from 3. He's aggressive enough where he makes it work. Miller's not a shooter at all, but they're both good inside scorers relatively for guys who bring a lot on defense. And I think, again, because of the way this roster is constructed with not a lot of shooting, I don't think there's going to be a lot of utility to having both Okoro and Miller on the team. So you might have to make a decision there. That could all change. Again, you get the number 1 pick, number 2 pick, draft Darren Peterson. Maybe you want many as Miller and Okoro types on the team as you can. But again, when you're working with sort of a mixed bag in terms of the pieces, it makes it hard to really fit them all together. So I like Okoro's skill set, but again, with all the moves made afterwards, I know they're trying to tear it down, but it is really weird to see how it's all going to fit together. And we didn't bring him up, but I just want to touch on, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Ousmane Dieng, the young guy from OKC that the Bulls had for like a hot second. I see a lot of people freaking out about him having good games with Milwaukee and why didn't Chicago keep him? If the Bulls are trying to develop Leonard Miller, maybe play Isaac Okoro, maybe find minutes for Noah Singay, you just run out of time to put these guys on the floor and in the rotation. So, you know, it's nice to have every prospect in the world, but at some point you do have to think about guys actually playing. So
I don't see really a problem though with Leonard Miller or I don't think you can have enough of those type of guys that are really good wings that can defend. I was disappointed, I will admit, in Okoro's 3-point shooting this year. He shot 39, 37%, I think, in previous seasons. And he's down to 33-ish percentage this year. And I will agree, Leonard Miller, he's shooting 27% from 3 or something like that, 28, 29%. You can't have that lack of shooting together on the floor. But your hope is that those guys develop into better 3-point shooters, become 3-and-D guys. Those guys are really good to have on the defensive end, especially around guys like Giddey and Modest, who still are developing as defenders. And in Giddey's case, I don't think he has that high of a defensive ceiling because of his physical limitations. I agree with you that Bazell has a much higher ceiling defensively.
But I think Boozy will be a good defender, man. He just strikes me as the kind of kid that, not to say he's like D Rose in the slightest, because he's not. He already showed me he's not like D Rose and how he handled the questioning after the Luka 51 piece on him. And he said, "Oh, I learned who to talk to." D Rose will never say no shit like that, but he's still a fighter. But Modest just strikes me as the kind of kid who he reads the chatter and he sees what people say is his weakest link. And I think everyone's been calling him out this year for his defense and his handles. And I just see Modest being one of those kids that this offseason or every offseason until it becomes prominent, like he's going to work on that. He's going to work on that weakness. I think he will be a good defender in this league. Because I think what makes him a bad defender is just the awareness, because you see he's a good help side blocker, which is like, not to bring him up, but like that was my most excited quality about P. Will coming into the league, because that was his most one of his strongest aspects to me in the college tape was that he was a good help side defender. And he did kind of show that his rookie and sophomore year. So I think Modest is a great help side defender, but he gets lost out there constantly. But I think that just comes with time and experience. And I think that Modest definitely will make himself a better defender. And I think he'll look a lot better too once we have some frontline help in the defensive area too. When we do have a big man, because I think a lot of these guys look worse on defense because our paint defense is putrid, so you're going to look a lot worse when you can't depend on the guy to get past you, but then your guy in the paint is going to deter the defense. So I think once we get a better, again, it all just comes down to roster construction with these dudes, man, because how many people do we see leave the Bulls, go to teams that are not even better than us? Sometimes they might be just as good or worse, but their rosters are constructed better. They're more balanced or whatever. And we see people leave this team, like Wendell going to the Magic. He's not a superstar there, but he looks better on the Magic because they're constructed better there. Laurie going to the Jazz. They're not, oh man, I think they are better than us right now. But for a while, they weren't better than us. but he looked better there because the roster was constructed better to fit his needs. Or even Bruce going to Boston. Again, he's out right now, but he looked good for a couple of weeks because why? The roster was suited to fit his weaknesses. So I just think that Modest is going to be a player that definitely does improve that defense and looks a lot better once we get some better defenders around him as well.
It's interesting, though, because part of what you're saying, though, is why I think the Bulls need to be leaning offense heavy and looking at the best offensive talent they can bring in, especially when we're talking about the draft or even free agency, is because if you're going to have Giddey be one of your, core players, let's just call him core 3, you're always, I think, going to be lacking a bit defensively. You're just not going to be a good defensive team, which is okay. We've seen it with the Denver Nuggets who won a championship. I shouldn't say good. You're not going to be a great defensive team.
Yes.
You can be average, passable, even good at best, but you're going to be an okay defense. But Fred brought up a great point that maybe I want to have an Isaac Okoro and Leonard Miller out there at the same time because those are two big guys, physical players who I know are going to play defense. But then let's just say you're going to have Giddey, Matas, a Miller, and an Okoro. You're going to need that fifth guy to absolutely be able to knock down the three-point shot just to be able to give you some room to operate offensively. And it really doesn't matter if that's a Cam Boozer or if it's a guard or if it's a 7'3" guy we're not thinking of who can shoot threes, but you're going to need that fifth player to be able to space the floor. So I think the Bulls kind of have to think offense because if we're talking about them becoming a 50-win team, a playoff team, a title contender, it's going to be because Matas Buzelis, Josh Giddey, an insert name is driving such a special offense that's doing just enough defensively to win games, I think. So I'm not as concerned about anything defensively because I think Matas, like we've discussed, is going to be at least passable on that end. And then you kind of know Giddey isn't. So I don't think they're going to be able to become a great defense unless you're adding like 3 to 4 great defenders. And I think with the way the Bulls spend their resources, they're just not going to get to that point unless they get lucky in the draft. But I do think if they hit on one offensive talent, I think the playmaking talent of Giddey is enough to kind of rise the level of your offense to a point where it's like the Bulls are punching above their weight. So I'd still be thinking offense, although Billy Donovan, I'm sure, would disagree with me heavily.
Yeah, I think especially at the center position, you just got to my issue with Giddey is physically limited. He's a point guard who cannot guard point guards. He's basically a front court player who can rebound pretty okay, but he'll never be an elite rim defender or defensive player. Modest has, I agree with you, Michael, and you've kind of turned me around on this a little bit. He has the ability to be probably a difference maker in the defensive end. Right now, he's an excellent shot blocker. That's where he's good. My issue with Modest is he's still very weak on the defensive board. He's still not strong, and he often gets manhandled physically. And I think he's got great vertical quickness, but not great horizontal quickness. I think he has an issue staying in front of threes. This is why it's kind of a debate. Is he a 3 or a 4? I'm firmly in the camp he's a 4, and that for him to maximize his skill set, I want him to be a 4. I want him to be closer to the rim as a shot blocker, number one. Number two, I think he struggles more when he's out in the perimeter trying to guard fast threes. I can point to many different sequences where he struggled keeping guys in front of him. I don't think he's got exceptional quickness on that vertical, on the horizontal level. So that's why I want him to be a 4. Bulk up a little bit. Stick to 4. I know I'm in the minority on this, but that's why I think you need a guy at the center position who's just going to clean up their mess, just being an incredible defender. And those are hard to come by, they really are. So I don't know. I'm hoping that Modest does reach his defensive potential, but to me, that's only going to happen if he gets significantly stronger. I know some people are concerned, well, that's going to affect his shot blocking.
I think he will.
I hope so. I hope so. He has to, because you see it, like even now.
Yeah.
I always, anytime you watch a Bulls game, watch the highlights. Sometimes if you don't get to watch a game, watch the highlights on Google. And I always kind of view it as when you see the other team score or dunk or what happens, that's a crime scene. Figure out who was at fault on that. And a lot of times you'll see Modest is being physically manhandled.
He's getting whooped.
Or he's not. He gets backdoored a lot. Every game at least once. He still needs to work out. But he's 21.
He's 21.
21-year-old.
Yeah, while we say that, though, while we say he's young, what's interesting to me, and it's why it's the skill I care about as a prospect, is rebounding is one of those things I think guys just either want it or they don't. And not even positively or negatively, just ingrained in them. You either see it or they just don't necessarily have it. And unfortunately, this is the only thing he has similar to P. Will. But I think Matas is similar in the fact that he's a big guy, but he doesn't necessarily get boards. It's just not what he does. And that's a big part of why I think ultimately he's a small
Is that
forward.
part of the scheme, though, Mike?
It's part of the scheme because there's so much switching. So you have Matas naturally switching on the guards, pulling him away from the rim and away from the basket. But I think a lot of that is the modern game. And you still see guys who are doing a lot of switching, yet they're still getting 8-9 boards a game. So I think part of it is Matas just naturally isn't really as much of a rebounder as you would want for his size. And that's why I think he's ultimately a small forward, is because I think even when he gets older and bigger, you're going to want a guy small like a Yabusele, a Cam Boozer, or whoever playing next to him just to clean up the glass a little bit more so you're not getting beat up on the offensive glass defensively. So I think you're going to have to deal with him being a small forward unless you really hit on a wing where you think then you can scale Matas up. But I think it's okay to have him playing that 3 spot. It gets complicated when you play so small sometimes in the backcourt. But I think it can work with Matas on the wing. And I just want to touch on, we had a question from Rob. He said, can Giddey create in the half court? Create? I wouldn't say no. I would say no. I think Giddey can work offensively in the half court. He can't create. It's part of why I'm so big on this draft, getting a guy like Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsta, even if you want to say Kingston Flemings or Darius Acuff, some point guards. I know a lot of guys would hate to be on the Bulls because they feel like it wouldn't work. But Giddey is a playmaker, not a creator. And in the half court, what makes Giddey so great now is he shut me up because I just never thought the guy would be a catch and shoot threat. And he is. You can't really leave Giddey open for
and hitting step 3.
Yeah, and occasionally hitting a step back off the dribble. So you can't really ignore him when he doesn't have the ball on the perimeter or when he has it. And so because of that, I'm comfortable bringing in someone who's more of a half-court creator so that way Giddey can spot up in the half-court or set screens even and make himself more of a threat. And then in the full court, Giddey's most comfortable with the ball, giving it up early. So I don't think Giddey can create in the half-court, and that's why we kept seeing the Bulls lose in the play-in. And then just 2 more quick comments from comments we had. Trade Trey Jones while his value is high.
Yeah.
Sounds great on paper. I think you can just put that to rest. Billy Donovan loves Trey Jones. Was a big reason he was re-signed in the first place. I just don't see that happening. And then Undisputed, our favorite draft analyst, says Jaden Quaintance or Mara. People, I don't think really want to hear much on that. I do love Mara. He's like a 7'3" giant from Michigan. I think he would be great as a 2nd-round pick. So I would just probably say him because with Jaden, I'm very scared of the injury concerns. I'm not scared of the injury concerns long-term because he's so young. So if the Bulls get that Portland pick, which looks like a possibility, the Bulls may have an extra 1st-round pick. Then I would look at a guy like Jaden from Kentucky and try to get a big in who can be a shot blocker and difference maker athletically. But ultimately, I think the Bulls, they're not in a great spot, but in terms of starting a rebuild, which is really what they're doing, I think Giddey and Matas you could have a worse hand to start with for sure.
I want to say, for whatever reason, shout out to Abe, the OG Bulls fan. He's been saying a lot of good comments. I think that what you just touched on, Mike, was the Trey Jones thing. That was from Abe. For whatever reason, Abe, it's not letting me. I think because you're commenting from Twitter, so maybe you hopped in one of these guys' streams, probably from Fred's or Mike's, but I'm not able to put your comment on the screen. But shout out to Abe. I think he's one of my favorite Bulls fans out there, man. He called himself the preacher. And I think always on Twitter, man, like you just get some of the best perspective from him. He's constantly preaching. And he even asked earlier, is it time to trade Giddey? What do you guys think about that? Because I know we just got done talking about like how he proved you wrong, Mike, and he's improving, but since we've already traded away guys like Kobe, you traded away Io. In order to, I feel like we're not quite at ground zero yet, but like we're clearly restarting, if you will, and retooling. If the right piece came along or the right offer, would you guys be open to trading Giddey right now? Because I think he's playing really well, and we kind of got him somewhat at a steal for his contract because I see his trajectory consistently going up. I think the things that are going to make Giddey a great player are like you touched on, Mike and Fred, just the defense getting better. But that just comes with age for me, because he already plays in a way where he's not beating you with athleticism. You gotta play at Giddey's pace. He's a heady player. So I think that as Giddey just improves, just gets his grown man body more, like he's going to become a better defender. He's going to become more scrappy, getting to the line more. Billy said that he had him stop shooting the floater as much and really push to get all the way to the bucket because of his size. So I think that Giddey just becomes, like, by the time he's 27, 28, a very scrappy player who can easily give you 23 a night, going to the free throw line or catching shooting from three. But do you guys think, would you trade him if the right package came along, to answer Abe's question?
Guys, I hate to do this, but I gotta run in 2 minutes.
Okay.
For the family. My apologies. I should have told you guys that ahead of this.
You're all good.
I did want to address.
We're gonna do a part 2, Fred.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. I don't think Giddey is. I think Giddey's worth more to the Bulls than he is necessarily the other teams. I think he's a really difficult fit with a lot of teams. And I mean, I understand the idea, like, well, we could probably get a lot for him. I'm not sure you can. I'm really not. Like, right away, he's a point guard. Like, he's a ball dominant point guard. You go around the league, I don't know if there's a lot of guys that would be like, hey, let's bring Josh Giddey in and give you a lot for him, right? I'm just my opinion. But he's on a really good contract, I think, for the next 3 years. That's what makes this so frustrating for me, is like his value through every year is going to go down a little bit, because if he keeps on putting up these numbers, he's going to get a much better deal at the end of this contract. So, like, he's on cost control, $25 million a year for the next 3 years past this season, and then he's going to get a much bigger contract. And I think it's going to be far harder to justify his value to whoever takes that contract on when he's making $50 million as opposed to 25. So, boy, I would not trade Josh Giddey. I like Josh Giddey. I enjoy watching him play, but I do feel like it is a harder fit for any other team, and I don't really think it's because it would be a really tough thing. Like, if you're a team right now who's going to have one of those lottery picks, you're not giving up a lottery pick for Josh Giddey. There's no way. So, So I mean, I wouldn't make any trade, and to me, that's the only way I would consider moving Josh Giddey is for a lottery pick or another really young player.
I feel that.
And I'll be quick for time, but I'm same as Fred. I wouldn't trade Josh Giddey, mostly just because at some point you start to get into the 2K sim mode where you're just trading for the sake of trading. I just think it's too early. Right now, you're going to get the most value from holding on to him because the value of contracts just keeps skyrocketing. And eventually, Josh Giddey on $25 million is going to be insane. Just like Zach LaVine, who a lot of people despised, it became a point where just because of the economy of the NBA, Zach LaVine became a value contract just because he was signed at the time he was signed. So I think Josh Giddey is going to enter that territory. And I also think when you're doing a rebuild, you're starting off with what are we building with? A lot of people don't trust AK to draft in the first place. So just saying, let's get 30 first round picks, a little bit of a weird thing to say, let's just go there. So if we're working with what we have right now, which is we all admit Matas kind of fell into his laps because Charlotte went with Tijon Salon over Matas there. I think
who's a good player.
Right, he's a solid player.
But he ain't boozy.
He doesn't seem like a foundational piece. And the Bulls right now, it's like, what are they building the ship out of? They're building it out of the fact that Matas and Giddey, and like I think this is the bottom line, they're two tall players who have the skills of a perimeter player. And because of that, it allows you to go either way with the other three players on the court. You can add more small guards because Giddey and Matas can rebound decently for their size and maybe do a little bit of rim protection in Matas's case. But they also have perimeter skills, so maybe you want to play some more 7-footers out there because Matas and Giddey can both handle and run pick and roll with those guys. So I think having two big, tall, versatile players is a good foundational point. And that's why you can't get rid of Giddey yet because Matas isn't very good at playmaking. And I think it's something he's picking up from, again, learning from and working with Giddey.
All right, guys. I can't thank you enough for having me on. It was awesome talking to you, Guilty.
You see what Mark just said, Fred? He couldn't let you get out of here unscathed. Jesus Christ. Funny time, Mark. Fred's getting ready to ditch us right now, man.
We got to do this again, man. I had a blast.
Absolutely.
It was awesome talking to you guys. Absolutely. And, hopefully the next time we do this, we'll be in a much better position. Hopefully, we'll see. But to me, we need to get a top 4 pick. If we don't get a top 4
Absolutely.
pick, we're going to be back in the same. I mean, hopefully we'll find somebody in this draft, but I don't know. It just it will be a disappointment if we don't end up with a top 4 pick.
I agree.
Yeah, guys. Can't thank you enough for having me on, man. It was always
Thank
good
you,
to talk
Fred.
to you.
Thanks again.
Thanks
Fred.
a lot. Have a good one, guys.
All right, Fred.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, Mike, I think we could, maybe just end it maybe the next like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe like 5, you know what I mean? Just answer some of these questions. I can't for whatever reason. Like I see some of these comments coming up on the live chat, but I can't get to all of them. But
yeah,
let's see here.
Undisputed said you don't need a top 4 pick. One of his more mild takes that I would agree with. I was going to say before Fred got out of here, I definitely don't think in this draft specifically, Bulls don't need a top 4 pick. But you want one just because, again, you want the least margin for error. You want AK to be able to look at a mock draft and say, I'm just going to do what the mock draft says and end up coming out with a good pick. We saw the year Patrick Williams was drafted, 2020. They got a little creative. I always feel comfortable talking about that class because I think I did enough research to where I had Patrick ranked like 18th or 20th. Thought he was a first-round talent, but seeing him go 4 made me lose my mind. So I was like, whoa.
Literally, I thought Devin Vassell was the guy that you're going to get from his team because, quite literally, P. Will came off the bench for him. So, like, it just goes back to, like, I was younger and shit. So, like, I was at that point where you think, well, okay, if you're general manager, and at that time, AK was still newer. So I said, okay, maybe I was wrong. And obviously, like, he's the one that's in that position. I'm on my couch. So, obviously, what he sees in P. Will, he just got us a steal. But like my initial reaction was, what the hell are we doing? What I wanted us to do in that draft was it might sound like bullshit now, but I swear to God, you can go look in the Discord chat. I wanted us to trade down and try to get Halliburton and Sadiq Bey because they were both slotted to go later than our pick. And I'm like, at the 4th pick, you can damn near trade down maybe and get a Halliburton and Sadiq. And dude, it just makes you wonder, how different would this team look if you would have did something like that? And I think that's where so much of the vitriol comes from with P. Will is because he got drafted 4. It's fair, but it's not his fault. But again, to your point, like how different does this team look if we simply would have let P. Will be drafted where he was supposed to be drafted, like you said, at 19 or 20 later? He's a late first round kind of guy. I think that's what people get confused. P. Will is not ass to me, man. Like, as much as I want more from P. Will is still not ass. I think people forget the fact that we get so mad with P. Will because we know how talented he is. It just seems like he doesn't know. But P. Will is definitely a late first kind of a pick. It's just that AK took him at 4 and gambled, and he's not living up to that. If P. Will was drafted at 19 or 20 or late first round, people wouldn't have as much hate for P. Will as they do. And it's a contract. But again, it just makes you wonder, man, like how different would it look if we didn't take P. Will out of draft stock, out of position.
It's why the scouting is so important. You can land a difference maker at any spot, but you got to do your homework and make sure you're going to hit the right pick. And it's one of those things why, Rob said he's so worried about AK making a pick this year. I really wouldn't, because at this point, you're just scouting off of your GM's tendencies. I think we know no matter where the Bulls pick, if the board falls like we think, the Bulls are going to pick the 6'9" to 6'10" guy who does something well. So in this draft class specifically, if you just take a quick glance at those guys, the Bulls are going to end up with someone who is a good prospect on paper. Now, what they do with them, how they develop them, what actually happens with their career, who knows? But I think, again, you're talking about guys like Nate Ament, maybe guys like Keaton Wagler from Illinois. We know AK loves guys from Illinois and the University of Arizona, so maybe a Braden Burries or a Koa Pete. We don't know how these guys are going to turn out, but based off of what the guys who do their homework every day on these prospects are saying, the Bulls are going to end up with a player who can mesh well with Montas and Giddey and start to put them in the right direction. And Rob said P. Will is an NBA player. I mean, all I'll say on that is, yeah, he quite literally is for right now an NBA player. But
for right now,
I think based off of what we know, the type of players that AK likes to draft, you look at Noah Singay, I think the Bulls are going to end up with a good prospect if you look at those type of players with this class. And someone said, tell us who the Bulls lead
Oh, that's
scout is.
Abe. Yeah, I wish I could put your comment up, Abe. I can't.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. I do know. I think man, I want to say they used to have Duhei Dukan's dad as like the head international scout. If anyone remembers that guy, he used to play for University of Wisconsin basketball, Duhei Dukan, I think. But I don't know. But either way, the Bulls scouts, I mean, I think, you know, whoever they are, they do a good enough job. The Bulls don't necessarily always develop guys the best. Which is another thing I think Billy doesn't get credit for. Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu became decently great players because they got to work with Billy as they developed physically themselves. So, again, I'm not too worried about the Bulls with this class. I just think they're going to end up coming out with a good prospect.
So, Undisputed says, keep Wagler far away from Chicago. So, Mike, I saw you in there last night. I want to take a second to give a shout-out to our guy, Sonny. There's some good news I have about Sonny. I might have to keep it low key for him and Gavin's sake, but I'm sure you'll know what that means. But we're gonna be having Sonny. If you guys haven't heard of Sonny Verisma, he works for Locked On Illini, USA Today, and he covers the Illini team. One of the best dudes that I've had the pleasure of getting to know recently, and he runs this awesome Discord server for the Illini and all his coverage. And I was in there last night with those boys for that Illini game against VCU. And man, look, that shit was so hype. That game was so hype. Now I don't know how good VCU is because I'm one of those guys that doesn't watch college ball. Like I watch the highlights, like leading up to the draft, and I watch March Madness. So I don't know how good the team they were playing was, but they put belt to ass in that second half. And I think from what I saw from Keaton Wagler, I think that dude has an immediate chance to be a contributor in the NBA. But he looked kind of passive last night because I think what his best skill set is obviously shooting the rock. And last night, for whatever reason, it's kind of it works against him, kind of like P. Will, where like you can see he tries to get the rest of the offense going and pass the ball more. But I think if he's going to shine in the NBA, he needs to be a lot more selfish because you have a burner, and that's probably your most translatable skill. So he needs to put that shot up a lot more. He looked okay last night, but just shout out to I just saw him talking about Wagler, and just I want to give a shout out to Sonny. And I agree. I think it was Undisputed that said it was keep Wagler far away from Chicago. How do you feel about that, Mike? Because I'd much rather see us get a wing or a big guy, especially, but the draft is not the end-all, be-all. We have free agency. We have trades in the offseason as well. So even if we don't draft a big, I'd rather see us draft a big. But, like, are there any guards that you would be okay with us grabbing, like a Darius Acuff or a Wagler? Or I know your guy, Mikal Brown Jr. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so my number one thing with the Bulls is they're just like I keep calling them a blank, like a ball of clay, a blank slate. I'm not even joking when I keep saying to people, I don't think there's any type of prospect that you could qualify as like the Bulls shouldn't take or don't take this type of guy, because I think you can say that once you're the Oklahoma City Thunder getting a lottery pick. They're like, we have an established set thing that we know wins games and works, so we don't need another center or we don't need another point guard. When you're the Bulls and you're trying to figure out what you are, I don't think you have the right, or you're at luxury, or at least if you're trying to do things the right way, to say we can't take this talent. Because again, it's maybe they had that idea with Queen and you miss out on a guy who looks very productive. So you just got to take whoever you think is the best player. So I wouldn't really look at that. Just quickly on Keaton Wagler, the reason, I like him, people know I love a guy who's aggressive from the 3-point line, even though he could be more. And I like a guy who gets to the free throw line at a high rate, and he does both of those things. Abe said he's an Illini guy and he thinks Wagler is overrated, which I can completely understand. But I just think it comes down to he's going to be one of those players that I don't think functions very well as a role player, but can actually have a lot of juice if he gets to create on ball a little bit more. Kind of like what you touched on yourself, Guilty. I think he could be good if you try to develop him as a star type player, as the engine of your offense. I don't think he'll function very well being just the spot up around, be a help type guy. Something I liked against VCU, they are a good defensive team. And I think
are they really?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
They don't look like it last night, boy. Them boys in the second half got rocked.
There's a point where he was shooting, I think, like 1 for 6, 1 for 7.
Yeah, it was bad in the first half.
he still, he got a mismatch with a big man and wasn't scared to ISO him, try to hit a crossover and shake him and get off a nice floater. So I just think he has a scorer's mentality that you can't teach. And it's part of why NBA teams, a lot of guys have him so high. You can't teach being that aggressive off of pick and roll actions. He doesn't have, like Abe just said, the explosiveness or the athleticism
I wish I could highlight
that you look for
Yeah.
as a creator. But I think it's just the fact that he's crafty. The fact that he's getting to the free throw line so much as a guy who isn't that athletic tells you he knows how to work angles and use his size. You talked about wanting to wing guilty more over a guard. I think Wagler, as he gets older and fills out his frame, can be a wing. I mean, he's a legit, I'm pretty sure, 6'6". So I think having him and Giddey as a backcourt would be awful defensively. I'll make no ifs, ands, and buts about it. But again, I think you're trying to become a great offensive team. And I think having them both be players that can shoot threes at a high rate, but also create for others is going to allow you to play a lot of defensive-minded players because maybe Wagler and Giddey are creating a lot for them. So I certainly don't think you need to keep him far away from Chicago. I don't think he's going to be a good defensive player. So I would assume that, Undisputed hates him so much because he doesn't fit well with Josh Giddey defensively. So I certainly understand that. But for a guy who you think can unlock a lot of potential offensively, I don't think you can turn your nose down at that. And you talked about the point guards. I definitely would consider taking a guy like Acuff. I'd be more interested in Kingston Flemings just because I think you have a higher level defensively there. So that could work a little bit more. But again, you're talking about Giddey, who's 6'7", and Matas, who's 6'10". And then again, the guy who you drafted to be a part of your future and Noah Singeh is 6'10", 6'11". So I see no reason you can't try to fit in a player. I think the Bulls might be more uniquely positioned to try to fit in a guy like Darius Acuff into the lineup because he's going to be playing with Josh Giddey. And then something I don't understand with people with being scared of putting Giddey next to a point guard. Giddey's unselfish. He loves giving up the ball. Yeah, he's big and he loves giving up the ball early. So I don't see any world where it's going to be a problem for Giddey usage-wise to play with a guy who's on ball because, again, he was playing with Kobe White, who didn't see a three-point shot that he didn't like, and Giddey was still functioning at a pretty high level offensively. So if I'm the Bulls, I'm looking at every single player equally, regardless of position. And as far as Wagler, I understand where Undisputed's coming from just to, again, not be a complete jerk. I wouldn't take Wagler number one. Like I saw someone say, oh, some scouts say they would take him 1 or 2 or something like.
No, he's not 1 or 2, man.
Yeah, if I say in this class, anywhere after the top 4, I really think it's just eye of the beholder.
It's justifiable.
So in that 7 to 10 range, I really wouldn't hate it. But yeah, top 4, I think it's established who you would take. But 5 to 14, I really think it's just about who you like. But I certainly wouldn't limit what type of position I take because, again, that's the beauty of having Giddey and Matas. And again, Giddey is signed to a great deal. So if you get a point guard who makes Giddey expendable, hey, maybe you go fish around with that $25 million contract. Exactly. Get the ball rolling that way. So OKC, Sam Presti, the reason they became such a great spot is because they didn't say no to any possibilities that would open up doors down the line. So you got to be flexible on these things. Always give yourself another out, another chance.
So I want to say, like, you brought up a really good point. Shout out to our guy Cody Lewis. I'll be sending you this because he ain't been in the Discord because, like, when he came in there, man, he was getting attacked, and it was because he's one of those fans who are like a peck. They think with logic. They're not feeling what the Bulls are doing, so it's hard for them to support what the Bulls are doing. And I've been one of those people for a long time. This is my first time watching this team every game and maybe 4 or 5 years, like literally. So, but shout out to Cody because what Cody has said in regards to Giddey, Mike, and it goes to your point, is that one of the things that makes Giddey so good, but it upsets a lot of his like diehard fans, is when you suggest that you can also play him at the 3 as a point forward, and he doesn't have to just be your point guard. And a lot of the shout out to Peck. I know it's going to upset some people, but just for conversational piece for purposes, but the Giddeyits, because they'll get upset when you put out the premise that Giddey doesn't have to just be your point guard. He's not only a point guard. That's not a slight to him. That's a compliment. The fact that Giddey can slide from the 1 to the 3 is a testament to his skill set, to him being 6'8", and I think a very creative coach, or maybe even Billy Donovan himself. If you were to draft, like you said, a guy like Acuff or Flemings or Wagler or a Brown, is maybe you mess around and you experiment with Giddey being at the 3 and playing off ball, but still facilitating as a point forward. You're not limited with Giddey. And I think that's what makes Giddey such a good piece to have, because he's not locked into just being your point guard. You could put him at the 3 or the 2. And Billy Donovan's offense, put him at the 4. If the roster is constructed in a way where there's defense around him, put him at the 4 situationally and still have that playmaking come out of him a la Tony Kukoc. I just feel like you're not limited into only drafting wings or bigs. And for me, you guys don't know me, but like that's huge for me to say, because I only want us to draft wings or bigs. I don't want us to go towards any guards. But if we were to go towards a guy like Acuff or Wagler even, or Flemings or Brown Jr., I think this team has the flexibility to do that because of how good Giddey is and because of how unique he is, where you don't have to just keep him at the 1. Put him at the 3. Get creative. He can operate the same way he does off ball. And I think that's a testament to his skill set. I think you have more problems with guys who are locked in, because I think even looking at like the matchup, or I'm sorry, the pairing of him and Kobe White, we had to trade Kobe White. And shout out to my guy, Justin. He runs Bulls Lead. But I remember I got pissed off at when we were like 5-0 at the start of the season, and when Kobe was still coming back from injury, and Justin came in there in the Discord and he said like, "Hey, with the way we're looking, guys, right now with Kobe being injured, does Giddey now make Kobe expendable?" And he got so much pushback from myself included, because I was pissed off. I'm like, why are you even thinking about trading Kobe while he's injured? When he gets back, he's going to look even better than Nessa Giddey. But I think Kobe is one of those dudes who low-key looked better with the ball in his hands more. So he was struggling this year, whether it was the injury, whether it was the trade rumors. But I think him playing off ball with Giddey, it didn't work out as well for him. Whereas I think if you put Giddey in an off-ball role, I think your team still looks just as good, because especially now with Giddey's added catch and shoot skill. He damn near thrives where he's not always having to be on ball and have the defense focused on him. And you put him on the wing and have him waiting for a catch and shoot, and he could play make or put up a 3 for you. So yeah. I just don't think that we're as limited as people would have you believe. And I think that we can. The Bulls just can't go wrong this draft. There's going to either be a guard there for us, there's going to be a wing there for us, or there's going to be a big man for us. And then we still have free agency and trades. So I'm really looking forward to this offseason. I think we can't go wrong. It's just what direction do you take?
And I saw a comment that said you can't have a negative defender next to Giddey. And it's just where I disagree, just because like I tell my cousins and nephews who are still like actively playing basketball now, like at the high school and JUCO levels. It's just like basketball is just like a game with solutions, problems and solutions. And so I think you can play a negative defender next to Giddey, because it's like I always argue with people who, say AJ Demancey is offensively impressive, but defensively he would kind of tear apart the fabric of the team because you're playing him next to Giddey. It's like, okay, what if you play a negative defender next to Giddey and they're scoring 26 points a game? It's like we say with Nikola Jokic. When Jokic became Jokic, the Nuggets didn't say, well, we can't play a negative defender next to him. They said, if we play a negative defender next to him, what does that negative defender do otherwise? Can you hit open threes? Because if so, Jokic is going to find everyone when they're open. So we can make value of that next to Nikola Jokic. Because at the end of the day, if you have a skill set that can work with Giddey, you can find other guys to play defense. Again, unless you're trying to build the 2004 Pistons, which you're not going to in today's NBA, and just have 5 guys out there locking down. It's just not going to happen. So really, when we're talking about defense in today's NBA, you're really just talking about either having a center like Gobert, who is dominant at locking down the paint, or you're talking about a team like OKC that has usually 4 to 5 guys out there that can switch. And so you really have no openings to even get a good look every night. So I don't think you need to worry about playing a negative defender next to Giddey. You just have to worry about zoom out a little bit more. What is the talent bringing to the table that can be heightened or lowered by Giddey in terms of a skill set? So again, you're just not worried about negative defenders, because again, you're just worried about what's the highest ceiling player I can put on this team to keep taking that next step forward.
Facts. How do you feel about this, man? I know, so not to spoil it for you guys, but we're gonna be doing a draft special for March Madness pretty soon here. We're either gonna be having on our guy Sonny that we talked about earlier from the Locked On Illini pod, or we're gonna be talking to our guys from those ceilings, Corey Toluba, Tyler Metcalf, and Tyler Rucker. So we'll dive into a lot more of these draft questions very soon for you. Also, shout out to a person from the north of Cali. I've been seeing your comments all stream, man. Like, you've been making some really good points. Go ahead and scan that QR code in the stream, man, and hop on our Bulls HQ Discord after the show. We'll have to talk ball through some more. But for you, Mike, so you see what Undisputed put here. He says he means AJ is an awful defender. How do you feel about that? Because I haven't watched AJ. I haven't called too many of his live games. I've seen the highlights on Twitter, which are always insane. But we know how highlights can. I mean, Denzel Valentine had good highlights. Not to put him in the same boat, but you know what I mean? I try to catch myself from only seeing the highlights. How do you feel about AJ and his defense? I haven't seen his defense myself.
Yeah, I mean,
which is always a good sign. I know he seeks out that matchup. Like, I heard that he doesn't shy away from matchups, which I like, because defense can be taught. If you had defense comes down to effort. And so when I hear that he seeks out the best defenders, I mean, like, it was the same with D Rose. And again, I'm not comparing the players, but I know when D Rose was a rookie and Benny Del Negro was coaching, you heard the stories of D Rose telling Benny Del Negro, no, I'm guarding Steve Nash. You know what I mean? I'm guarding the other best. Like, don't take me off shit. Like, I'm guarding him. And D Rose wasn't the best defender, but D Rose would send shit away at the rim. He was locking dudes down and then destroying you on offense. So with AJ, while he might not be an amazing defender, but it's the effort for me. It's the want to. He might not be the best, but it's the fact that he's like, no, fuck that. I'm guarding him. And to me, I think you can live with that. He might not be the most skilled defensive player, but it comes down to the effort, man. And what he gives you on offense, and you pair that with somebody who wants to get after guys on defense, I look past that flaw for him.
Yeah, I'm definitely not worried about AJ's defense. The reason people don't bring it up is just obviously because when you're drafting him, it's obviously not what you're focusing on because of what he does offensively. But just to touch on it, because obviously it's a big part of the game, probably the most important. Rob Antal in the comments made a great point, which is you can make an argument that the bigger your role on offense, it takes away from your defensive energy. I think that's a big part of why I'm not worried about AJ's defense. He obviously has a massive role at BYU offensively. I think his usage rate was among the highest of the top prospects that I looked at. I think it was above 30s and like in the 33% range, which, just for people who don't know about usage rates, that's like Russell Westbrook MVP range, where everyone's just giving you the ball and you're shooting or assisting or turning it over every play. So AJ has a huge role on offense. So again, maybe that's taken away some of his defense. But again, you're thinking he's going to have a huge role on offense too at the NBA. I think the big point here is that when you are a player who's going to be the engine of the offense, we're not worried about your defense. Jason Tatum is special because he's great defensively, but we don't talk about really Nikola Jokic's defense. We don't really discuss SGA's defense. We really stopped talking for years about James Harden's defense because it doesn't matter.
And he's been giving effort there.
Yeah, it's good that they give effort, but it's not that that's where their value is coming from. So when it comes to AJ, what we're really talking about, if we're even bringing up his defense, is he going to be so bad to the point where teams are hunting him out every night to say, hey, get a switch, get AJ on our guys so we can go to work on him. And he's 6'9", 210 pounds, and he gives a ton of effort on the defensive end. And he only gives effort really when he's on ball, which is a problem Zach LaVine has. He's locked in because he kind of knows everyone's paying attention to him. And then off ball, he can get a little lazy, get back cut. So he's going to have to work on that. But I think that's just something that comes with being a young player. I think he'll improve on that. The biggest thing for him is physically, he's a monster. So if we're going to assume he can get better at defense, he's working with the skill set to do so. Shout out to the guys at No Ceilings. I believe Stephen Gillespie, wrote the article that I was really influenced by, but did a great job of breaking it down. DeBensta can get a lot of steals off ball when he is engaged because he loves to get out in transition and create on offense. But a big problem with him. Some Undisputed love to bring up his defensive box plus minus, which isn't great. And the fact that he doesn't get a lot of blocks, which is a big issue. And I agree with him that actually is worrying. But the fact that he doesn't get a lot of blocks isn't something I worry about because, again, something I took from No Ceilings, when you compare him to players at his age, Jalen Williams on OKC, who's a great defender, and I'm not talking about the Arkansas one. I'm talking about the one who scores, tons of points that everyone knows, the second or third best player on OKC, that Jalen Williams. Yes. He had a comparable block rate to Debance in college, and he was a much older prospect. I believe he was about 21 years old when he popped off. So, again, AJ is very young. So let's just assume he's going to get more blocks and steals as he gets older, as he's carrying a lot of the burden on offense. So, ultimately,
I think he will, man. He's a winner.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there's one thing I get from a kid like AJ and a guy like Darius Acuff, that's another one. I know Undisputed likes to point it out, and our guy Joe Peppers in the Discord, they point out that guys like, I think Joe Peppers said earlier today that Acuff is a guy that will get coaches fired. Now, I haven't watched Acuff enough at all this season. I've seen bits and pieces of him, but like what I see from that kid, demeanor I get as a winner. But from what I hear from the guys like Undisputed and Joe that watch a lot more than myself, I hear that he's an awful defender. And I even saw a tweet earlier today. It was a guy talking about Acuff, and they said, like, it's insane to watch him not care at all about defense. So if his defense is that bad, it's concerning.
But that's like where it comes back to defense. Like, honestly, 50% of it is your size. And I think part of the reason Acuff isn't as engaged defensively is because he knows even if he gives his maximum effort, a lot of times he's just not going to have an effect on a guy in terms of changing his shot. He can maybe get him if he swipes down and gets the steal, but I think he understands he probably should conserve more of that energy for the offensive end. And that's where I go back to when people complain about AJ Debance's defense. It kind of comes back to no matter what, at the end of the day, Debance is always going to be able to put up a better fight at the NBA level defensively than Darius Acuff because he's 6'9" and 210 pounds versus a guy who's listed at like 6'2" and honestly is probably like 5'10", 5'9", if we're being honest. So
that's what I was going to get at with AJ, man. Is that
size and effort.
I was about to say, like, they're winners. They're winners, and I just feel like even if he doesn't become a lockdown player, and like you talk about, Mike, with his size alone, he hasn't even got his grown man body. Like when I see a winner, like I see an AJ, he only gets better with time. He only gets better as he fills out his frame. The same as Modest. But I think that AJ is even more of a winner than Modest. Like Modest is a nasty kid who wants to get after you. But I see, like we talked about last week, AJ is like your Batman, where you put the ball in his hands when you're ready to win that damn game. And I think that's the only reason they lost that game that they just had. Like, no shade to Robert Wright, but there are a lot of tweets, trolling him because they said game on the line, we only down by 4, you got about 2 minutes left, and meanwhile Robert Wright is out here dribbling like Cream Biggums and not giving the ball to AJ. Now granted, AJ did have that crucial turnover towards the end, but that's only because he was trying to make the right play after getting the ball just completely taken away from him for 2 minutes straight. I just think that AJ is a winner, and I just think that the older he gets, the more he fills out his frame, and you have defenders around him, and you have a coach and a system that he buys into. I just see AJ being a good defender. And even if he's not good or great, he won't be putrid. He will be serviceable and passable because he wants to win the game that bad. The effort will be there. And if you construct your roster properly, you're fine. Because like you said, Mike, what's he giving you on offense? And that's somebody that's going to make the defenders on the opposing team fucking tired because they can't keep up with AJ. And you add him to a team with Modest and Giddey and whatever the fuck we're going to have if he comes here. But I'm just not worried about AJ's defense in the big leagues because he wants it. He wants to win.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you're someone who just says, like, based off of him wanting the money, going to BYU, all this stuff, you don't think he's a winner. Just to simplify it even more, I think it comes down to the fact that
Undisputed talking about, man.
Well, I just think it's the fact that when you talk about defense, if you want to simplify it the most, you're just talking about what are a guy's limitations. The limitations to AJ being a defender is literally just his effort. It's 6'9", 210 pounds with long arms. You can really guard anyone if you're trying to. It's just about, do you want to? Same reason why, as I'm starting to really refine, like I'm probably only doing a lottery in terms of a big board this year. But when I look at Cam Boozer, who as a Duke diehard fan, I obviously love, I'm really closer to pushing him down to 4 right now instead of 3, because when I look at what's his limitations as a defender, I think he's going to have trouble size-wise against certain bigs. I think he's going to have trouble speed-wise against certain wings and certain bigs. So there's a lot of limitations there. I don't think AJ has any limitations besides effort. I don't think Caleb Wilson from North Carolina has really any limitations to who he can guard besides injuries, maybe. And then Darren Peterson, who's a guy we're not worried about his defense or his offense. We're more worried about Darren Peterson offensively. I think he has a path to being a great defender because he's a true 6'6" 2 guard who also has long arms. So I think as he gets older and, starts to care more on that end, he can be similar to Anthony Edwards, someone who's an impact defender despite carrying a large load offensively. And Boozer could be too. He's a high IQ player who I think is always in the right spot defensively.
He is.
It's just about if he's offensively going to be athletically able to keep up when it comes to switching.
I love his passing. I've not seen too many games of these guys in live action, but I caught some of the last Duke game or a couple of the last 2 games, like a couple minutes of them. And even though Boozer would be getting worked on defense or just not looking too confident on offense, what I will say I love from Boozer, and I think he's going to – because I've been one of the biggest Boozer skeptics since the start of the season. Like, shout out to our guy Kelder. I love you, Kelder. One of the biggest dookies out there, man. He gets made fun of for how much of a dookie he is. But since the start of the season, him and Barton Brooms, they will be advocating for Boozer. And I was like, I don't see it with Cam. I don't think he's athletic enough to have it translate over to the NBA. I would say I see the way he bullies guys in the paint in college, and I don't think it'll translate over. But the more I've seen of Boozer, and shout out to Undisputed as well, that's his guy. No, I think Boozer does translate over, but I saw you saying in the Discord, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, and I maintain this as well. He needs to be a 4. He's not a center. And I think Boozer carves out a very nice role for himself in the NBA as a 4. He reminds me of Kevin Love light at the beginning of his career where he was in the paint just hounding offensive boards. And I love his decisiveness on passes. He makes very quick decisions. And I like that about Boozer because it shows you his cerebral. So I think that Boozer will definitely translate over to the NBA and have a very nice career because of those qualities alone, where if you could put him next to a good defensive center and have him as your inside out kind of 4, where he can bully guys when you need him to, but he's really making his living on the perimeter, shooting threes and just hustling for offensive boards and making good passes out of the post. I think that Boozer's going to have a really good career.
And it's one of those things where ultimately we could be wrong too, just like all of us, because at the end, I think he can be a 5. It's just more of I think you don't want him to be your full-time 5.
I don't see him as a 5. But he's a small ball 5 at best to me. Small ball 5. Especially
maybe,
in the Billy
I think it's one of those things where in today's NBA, like you let's just say he gets drafted by the Pacers, Cam Boozer. You're going up against the Nuggets and you got Jokic on the schedule. Probably don't think you want Cam playing your 5. You're going to
be food out there.
You're going up against the Bulls and they got Nick Richards starting at the 5. I think you're honestly fine with Cam Boozer playing the 5 that night.
Oh, he's going to abuse
because Nick Richards isn't going to. He maybe get some offensive rebounds, gives us some trouble, but you're not really worried about Nick Richards giving him some big advantage because he's taller or lankier. So I think it really depends on the team he goes to, because there are some teams where the way they're constructed, like if he goes to, let's just say OKC, we get the nightmare scenario where they get a top 4 pick. I think you play Cam Boozer at the 5 in OKC because you're switching everything anyway. You got a bunch of guys who can really get steals. Yeah. All you want him to do is get the rebound, go get the rebound, and you're fine. So
and then create from there.
On the team. Yeah, even in Chicago, there could be a world where you put Leonard Miller at the 4 and Cam Boozer at the 5, and everyone else is grabbing rebounds, and he's just doing enough. He's just switching, keeping his arms out there, doing enough to where it works. So I think, you just got to see. But as people say, like if I say I'm moving Cam Boozer from 3 to 4, I don't hate the guy. I think he's the worst player in the world. It's just as we go ahead and project and look at these guys, you start to refine a little bit more how you think they'll project to the NBA. And for me, that athleticism is always going to be pretty high up there. So it's why a guy like Caleb Wilson, who I don't like as much because he doesn't shoot threes, is starting to intrigue me more when I look at defensively what a havoc record he could be at the NBA level.
And this is a good question from Abe. We're gonna end here a little shortly, guys. We probably got like 10 more minutes. But from Abe, does Boozer need the ball though? Because I think that's a really good question. I think, like you said, if you put him in Chicago, I can see a world where he succeeds, but also I know was it Kelt? No, it wasn't Kelter. Somebody in the Discord said this morning or yesterday, they said is Boozer kind of reminds them of Vucevic on defense. So how do you feel about that? Because like our biggest thing we've been waiting for years on this Bulls team was to get away from Vucevic's defense because the roster isn't good enough to have a guy like Vuce at the 5. So if we bring in Cam, are we not just repeating the same problem now? You're having a guy who's not a vertical threat on defense, who's not going to be a huge deterrence yet immediately on defense in the paint. So how do you feel about that? And like I know, I'm sorry, Undisputed. I know you hate that. I know you hate that comparison, but the athletic limitations are there for him, man. And especially once he gets to the league, dude, like, come on, bro. Like, he's bullying guys in college, but that shit's not going to fly against NBA bigs. It's just not. He's already having problems with guys in the NCAA who are more athletic than him. So I wonder.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it's definitely a fair comparison to bring it up. It doesn't worry me because it's one of those few times I'm gonna agree with Undisputed or any fan who jumps off the top rope when they hear somebody say something about one of their favorite prospects or players. I would agree with them that it's not like, oh my God, it's disrespectful. It's just one of those things where the defense to Vucevic, Cam Boozer, I get how Bulls fans could go to that comparison because he's not a quick guy in terms of side to side laterally. But I think it ends there because offensively the ceiling is just so much higher. It's why you're willing to put up with perhaps a Vucevic-like defense is because you think he's going to bring a lot more to the table than Vucevic did offensively.
This is true.
And for people who are like, oh, wow, bring more to the table than Vucevic. Vucevic still is a 20 and 10 guy his entire career, multiple-time All-Star. We laugh and we underrate guys. We really tend to do this once guys retire, but it's like Vucevic is good. He's not my favorite player. He's a guy I killed.
He's a very good player.
Yeah, it was more of an indictment every day. Yeah.
It was more, and I've been one of the biggest Vucevic haters for years. And I mean, like, this is where I shout out my guy Marquet. I shout out guys like you. I shout out our guy Brian. Shout out to you, Brian, your old ass. I know you watch. I'm gonna send you the link to this. But it's one of the things that, like, I was always the biggest Vuce hater. Why? Because I want to see my center. I come from watching Joakim Noah. Okay, I come from watching Taj Gibson. I want to see my centers be demons in the paint. And Vooch and Pau Gasol were the complete opposite of those kind of guys. But one thing I learned from a guy like Marquet and yourself, and even Brian, is that, and there's a guy on Twitter, shout out to Paulie G's, like NBA Index. But one thing I learned from listening to you guys talk about Vooch, and I came to appreciate him a lot more, is that while Vooch, defense isn't just about blocks. And that's something that really made me stop and think about what I consider as defense in the paint. So one of the things that made Vooch very underrated was, he might not be a vertical threat on defense. He might not be blocking shit on defense, but Vooch is very cerebral, and he was always in good positioning to deter you from getting a shot up. And a shout out to Brums as well, Barton Shaw. That was something that he brought up as well. Like, Vooch might not be, blocking your shot, but he might not even have to because the way he's positioned on defense is blocking you from even getting a chance to put the shot up. Or he's keeping you out of the paint with smart footwork and positioning. So to your point, there is a world where Boozer is damn near going to be good on defense because I think he's very cerebral. That's one of his best qualities is how smart he is. So he already will be getting himself in good positioning on defense, but he gives even more effort than Boozer on defense. And then if you surround him, like you said, with guys like even a Noah Senge, if he pans out to be good on defense, or just modest with his help side block, if you surround guys like that adequately, then they look a lot better. It's more of an indictment on you if you're dependent on guys like that who are not known for their blocking. If you're dependent on them for the paint deterrence, that's more of an indictment on you as a GM or a coach than it is on the player, because you know what their skill is, you know what their weakness is. And to your point, I think that you're right, man. I think that Boozer does give a lot more effort on defense. I think he's in the right spot a lot on defense. He's just a very smart player. And I think that there's a world where he's not a horrible NBA defender at all in the paint.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I was just looking up real quick. I think Boozer to answer Abe's question, like Boozer doesn't need the ball to be a good player. He's shooting, I think, like 39% on threes right now. I would imagine if you like narrowed that down to just catch and shoot threes, it'd be even better. So he's a high IQ player, obviously learning from his dad. He knows how to set a mean screen so he can work off ball. But I think that's why he's so good, is because you want the ball in his hands. I was just looking up real quick. I think Vucevic had like a 25% usage rate in college at USC all the way back when he played. Cam Boozer right now is like at a 29.5% usage rate and shooting like a 66% true shooting percentage, which all those numbers mean is he is doing a lot offensively, basically acting as his team's point guard, creating plays for everybody, but he's still shooting at a high percentage for himself. And again, he's also getting a lot of assists. I think he's getting like 4 assists per game right now at Duke, which compared to Vooch at USC, the point I'm trying to make is he's playmaking at a much higher level than Vooch did in college. And Vucevic is a guy we saw how effective he was
offensive
at the NBA level. Exactly. So if we're to imagine that the numbers translate and Cam Boozer is going to be even better than Vooch is as a passer, as a playmaker, as a big man, then you see why you're willing to put up with maybe some poor defense. Because again, you're talking about a guy who can get you 20 and 10, but then also maybe get you 6 and 7 assists on any given night. He can also maybe do a little bit less, scale it back if you need him to, and just shoot threes and space the floor for your guard. So I think Cam Boozer is just a coach's dream in the sense that you can ask him to go do whatever, and he can at least adequately go do it when we're talking about offense. So I think that's why you're willing to put up with maybe some Vucevic-like defense, if you want to call it that.
And that's a really good point, Mike. And so Undisputed said, like, you know, we've been talking about all episode, but he said his let me find the exact. Oh no, there it is. I mean, Boozer's playmaking out of the PNR is fucking insane. And that's, like I said, that's the past couple times I've seen some play from Boozer. I mean, immediately that's what jumps out to me, whether he was getting worked on defense or not, or he was looking a little, you know, suspect on offense with turnovers. One thing I love about Boozer is the tenacity to get inside the paint, get the offensive board, and he is a big body. He is strong in there. And I mean, you know, I guess even to criticize myself, you know, critique myself, because I say like, oh, is he going to be able to bully guys in the NBA? Boozer's still a kid himself. So what's he look like as he gets his grown man body and he gets stronger? And at some point, these guys who are his peers in college right now are going to be his peers in the league as well. So there is a world where Boozer is dominating the paint again. But what I love from him is that the playmaking, dude. Like, it's no hesitation with him. Some of those passes are so quick, and his teammates, it's the same as Giddey. He's getting guys amazing looks. They're just missing them. So, like, that's one of the things that intrigues me with Boozer is, okay, you get him in the NBA now where he has NBA shooters who space the floor. He might unlock some shit having a dude like that as your big man who's in there bullying dudes, getting the boards, and just constantly being a hub. Like you said, Vooch is getting you assists, but also he has a lot more offensive playmaking to his game and creation to his game than a guy like Vooch. Like, Booz will break a big man down off the dribble. He's going to break your ass down and maybe pull up on you from mid-range, take you all the way to the rack, or just pull up on you from 3. So I think he's damn near like a Vooch or a Pau Gasol 3.0 in that kind of sense.
Yeah, and I like that you were so big on Boozer's passing, just because I think that's part of why to address. Abe had another comment. He said, how do you know Cam Boozer doesn't need the ball when everything runs through him at Duke pretty much, which is a great question. He called him another Giddey, which I think is interesting because that was the criticism of Giddey. He can't scale down to work with other great players. And I'm not so sure about that. That's kind of the point. Giddey can catch and shoot threes now, so you kind of can scale his game down and put him out there with other players. I think the reason that we know Cam Boozer is going to work well off ball at the NBA level is because of 2 things. One, if you're going to try to force him to work on ball even when he's having a bad game, you know it can work because he's a good and willing passer. Yes. I forget who they were playing, maybe Wake Forest, but there was a game this year where he shot pretty poorly, I think, for the entire game, but ended up having about 7 or 8 assists just because he was continuing to have everything run through him, as Abe said.
That's in college.
But yeah, he's still bullying his way to the paint, drawing 2, 3, 4 defenders, and then kicking it out for open threes. So you can still try to force him to have the ball and not even worry about what he looks like off the ball by just giving him the ball. But to answer the question earnestly, the reason we know he's going to work off ball is because right now, Cam Boozer is getting, I'm looking at it, 3.4 offensive rebounds per game, and he's shooting 39% from three. That's it. If he doesn't have the ball, he's going to go hit the offensive glass and try to get it back for you, or he's going to be spacing the floor, where so far, at least, he has shown the capability to hit an open three-point shot. So maybe he doesn't, necessarily do those things well at the NBA level, but all we can do is project based off of what they're doing. And in college right now, he's shooting threes and he's hitting the offensive glass, and those are things you don't need the ball to do well. So I'm definitely not worried about him off ball.
I think for me, again, I feel like I'm very old school minded. Shout out my guy Justin Talks Hoops. He's gonna be on live tonight with the Cognac Boys, him and Sal from Bulls on Tap. But he shared a Kevin Garnett video in there in the Discord today, and like Kevin Garnett is one of my favorite players of all time. And like I just come from growing up, the big men I used to look up to were guys like Kevin Garnett, a guy like Amari Stoudemire, even Dwight Howard, where they were just physical demons and they got after you, they destroyed you, So I think that's always been my biggest aversion to guys like Booch or Pau Gasol, or even how Cam Booch is kind of playing. But I think honestly, man, I have to, again, check myself because it's a different NBA now, and the league is trending towards a different style of play. And I think there is a world where damn near Cam Boozer is one of your ideal kind of big man that can slide through the 4 and the 5 because of everything that you just said, because at the end of the day, he's still going to be a good playmaker for you, on top of being able to draw you out and be a pick and pop threat, or like Undisputed said, attack guys off the wing. And, Undisputed, you keep saying, why do I say that he bullies people? It's the truth, gang. Like, I'm not just talking out my ass. It's not a slight on him, dude. Like, he does bully a lot of guys. Like when he gets some of his points, it does come from bullying some of these guys in college, where I don't think he'll get away with that off the bat in the NBA. That's just facts. It's facts. But I also do think, to his credit, as he gets stronger, as he matures and learns his game more, that he will be able to potentially add that part, the bully ball, to his game as well in the NBA. But I think why he will have a good career is that he doesn't rely on the bully ball. And I think that if a team makes him focus on being a pick and pop threat, or just being that offensive kind of a hub and a connective piece in the league, and not always needing the ball in his hand, like you said, like just going out and giving you hustle plays and creating off that, I think he makes a world. He lives in a world where he is a very just a good starter. I don't know if he'll be a star, but just a great big man to have, man, a great asset.
Yeah, I mean, Abe said he reminds him of Blake Griffin without the hops. And Blake Griffin without the hops, if you want to get technical, is almost like Pistons Blake Griffin. And Pistons Blake Griffin was an all-star.
He was cooking.
So
yeah, he was.
I just want to remind people. So Blake Griffin without the hops, and not necessarily the worst player.
I think Blake Griffin, Pistons Blake Griffin had a lot more, just ISO on ball creative chops. So man, it's funny he says it. I just saw on Twitter the other day somebody had like a Blake Griffin mix, and they were saying like he was ahead of his time, like just the way he would take the ball full court. And he's in a compilation on YouTube, and it's a mix on YouTube of like 20 of the greatest isolation plays in NBA history. And Blake Griffin during, I think the Pistons, is number 20 on there. No, it was on the Clippers, but it just how he would take guys full court and just cross the shit out of them. I don't think Cam Booger's out here crossing dudes and shit like Blake Griffin was. Like Blake Griffin was really out here crossing niggas over, man, and like taking niggas' ankles. I think Cam Boozer has very good creative chops where he catches that ball on the wing out of a triple threat. You don't know what he's going to do to you, but he's not taking the ball, getting the rebound, going full court, crossing you over the whole way up the court. But still, he does have, I think his skill set of being a creative guy off the catch and shoot on the wing it's an asset for sure, and I think he can use that to his best ability in the NBA.
I mean, I think he maybe can do some of that stuff you were talking about, but I mean, you never know unless we give him the chance. And then Chicago, I'm not sure if the right place for that to happen, considering the head coach, but I certainly hope we maybe get the chance to see that here. But I think maybe we could see that.
Yes, absolutely. But okay, guys, we're coming on 3 hours here. thank you guys so much for being in the chat. We got guys like Rob Antal. Shout you out, Rob. Rob, you're just an amazing dude, man. I love your insights in the Bulls and the Discord and everything. So shout out to you. Shout out to Abe for coming through. Shout out to Undisputed. Thanks for being in here and talking nicely for what is nice for you. We know you'll be in other pods talking crazy later. But just shout out to everybody that came to watch. Shout out to Mark and Fred. And like I said, we're planning things out, but it's a lot of draft questions that I'm seeing. So we're gonna be having our next episode will be a draft special. It's either gonna be with Sonny from Locked On Illini, or it'll be from No Ceilings guys. And they said if they can't make it now for next week, then we'll definitely be doing an episode with them before the draft, which might be even better. So we'll be answering a lot of your draft questions very soon here. But thank you all for coming in the chat tonight.
Definitely shout out to everyone for real. And I definitely want to shout out Undisputed because we bring him up a lot. A lot of people are probably like, who the hell are you even talking about? But the whole lifeblood of the thing is people coming to actually see this, reading our writing, watching the videos, listening to podcasts. And I've seen, looking at the numbers, that we actually had a good amount of people in and out of here. And it takes time to do that. And Undisputed, that guy, he is, for people who don't know, he's a user, whatever. It doesn't matter. He's a person. He is commenting one of the first comments, has thoughts, opinions on every stream, every podcast, every Bulls show. So again, even if you got some wild thoughts, we appreciate you coming to share them with us. It always is surreal to me that anybody cares really strongly about what I got to say about the Bulls or what our opinions are on the team. So I appreciate all you guys, even though I will say I get it a little bit more this year now that I'm actually face to face with these guys. On that note, by the time if you're seeing this on Monday, I will be covering Bulls Rockets in person. So was really hoping we got to see KD pass Jordan on the scoring record in Chicago. But either way, it will be great to see Leonard Miller, Matas, some of our taller wings, maybe match up with guys like KD and Amin Thompson to really see that up close and in person. So next time we'll record, I'll definitely have some thoughts on what I saw in person when the Bulls took on the Rockets. So hopefully they're as close as possible to 100% from that game. But again, I really appreciate I see Phil in the chat. All of you guys who joined or follow us. Melissa came in earlier. I really appreciate, like you said, Guilty, everybody stopping through.
Yeah, and again, to Undisputed, man, I think he is the epitome. Whether he's brash sometimes, it's not whether he is. You are. I've told you this myself, man to man. But
no, he's outright rude sometimes. But we appreciate a strong opinion.
Like for real, but it just speaks to the passion that we have in this fan base. And I want to shout out Undisputed for, like he says, he likes to check out everyone's pod, whether he agrees with them, and especially the ones that he doesn't agree with. And I just appreciate you, man, for literally coming in. And he DM'd me one time when he first came to the Discord and said, love me or hate me, I'm always going to spark conversation. And that's a fact with him. You get guys who get he's very polarizing in that aspect, kind of like our guy Kelder. Kelder's very polarizing, where he makes dudes damn near want to leave our Discord server. I mean, it's literally people will leave if Kelder's in the space because he brings up the unpopular opinion. And I think it's the same for Undisputed, but he's like on the opposite side of the coin, where he's like aggressively optimistic, but I love that he actually watches ball. So while his takes may be, over the top or they might be brash, I just love the fact that you come in and you give your unfiltered opinions, and it's coming from somebody who loves the team and you watch the ball, man. So I appreciate you. Shout out to our guy, Phil. You came in late, man, but I hope you got your show, Phil. But shout out to my boy Phil, man. Bulls Without Borders, guys. I'll be on there with him this Friday. I'm sure you guys, if you're watching this, you've heard about Bulls Without Borders. But shout out to my boy Phil. Shout out to Troy, Hayes, Neil, and our guy Pads, who's behind the scenes. But just thank you, and Rob still commenting. A shout out to you, Rob. Like Mike said, man, it's very surreal to have. It says 300 people in the chat from this alone right now. It's super surreal to have you guys even come watch us and come participate and talk to us. So just thank you guys so much for coming through.
Like you said, we appreciate it all. I'm not in a press conference, which I'm still getting used to, being able to be face to face, asking questions to Billy Donovan, unless I got people like Undisputed who are lunatics who are clicking on every single link that I put out there. So yeah, it's always awesome. And to Phil, I'm always busy as hell. I will come on any show if we figure out a time. So man,
you're gonna have a good time on there, man. Motherfuckers be getting wild. It's a complete we're gonna get wild on there. He's especially if Hayes is on there too, we'll get wild. It'll be a wild episode.
But yeah, this was dope to have Fred and Mark on. I was really hoping we would be able to have them on.
And shout out to them, man. Shout out to my big brother Mark. We're definitely gonna have to do a part 2 because I wanted to be able to just have Mark talk a lot more about himself. I wouldn't be here right now with you, Mike, if it wasn't for Mark. You know, like Mark and guys like Salim and Fred and Lero and Chris, Kayla Hoops on Twitter, if you guys know that him and Lero started Swish Theory. You know, like those guys kind of paved the way for me as just a fan, but watching how they conducted themselves and did things together kind of opened this up for me. And Mark handed down the Bulls HQ Discord to me, which has led to even being here today. So
Mark's too humble to say it, but Mark's helped launch careers to some
careers,
so
man. He's such a staple in this community. He doesn't get enough shine. Yeah. Like, granted, and I always tell people, you know, Mark is the first one to tell you he can be an asshole and he will hurt your feelings or debate you. But that's what makes Mark so likable to me, is because he's not out here trying to be like, oh, I'm a good guy. No, Mark's the first one to tell you, like, I'm going to call you a dope and I'm an asshole. And like he said earlier, he's so humble, like he doesn't even view himself in that light. And he loves, like, he talks about all his wrong opinions. And like, that's my favorite quality about Mark, is not caring about being wrong, just standing by his opinions and being open to conversation with you, right or wrong. And I'm just so grateful that we had him on today. We're going to have him on again. And to see Red Fred as well, man, it was really cool. Because for me, Fred is known as like, he's, I don't want to say a comedic heel at all, you know, but like Fred just brings the good vibes, you know, like when things are too heavy and you go read a see Red Fred tweet, you're going to feel a lot better. But it was super cool having him on the show and really getting to hear how smart Fred is. You know, like really getting to hear him talk ball. And he's done that on your podcast with him when you went on. But like, it was just super cool having Fred on it and getting to really hear him, you know, dive deep into the ball. So we'll be having him back on as well. And maybe
you can't have Fred stand on my corner. I'm the comedic heel. I can't.
You are, man. I told you, you're a vibrator, dude.
I will say that in terms of those guys, another thing too is just Mark was one of the people who encouraged me. You know, if you love talking about the Bulls, don't shut up about the Bulls. Same as you. Wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Mark. Maybe 10 something years ago saying, hey, man, if you like talking about the Bulls, talk as much as you can. So sort of what Phil said about appreciating what he did in the Bulls community, we're always trying to grow it. That's why, like, we're here today because of Roundtable. You know, we encourage everyone to go make an account on Roundtable. Come on there. Come talk Bulls with us. Come post your opinion, because I'm on there sometimes not doing more credential type stories, just making a community post, shooting the shit, talking about what I think about this rebuild, how things are going, should they be looking at the top 4 guys even. So there's a lot of great stuff, and that's why the Bulls community is so great. Everybody's willing to sort of give their opinion and not be scared of being called a lunatic. So yeah, we love what we're doing out here.
I prefer it. And, you know, speaking of that, you know, like the Bills community having so many creators, I was just in the DMs with Derek Briscoe. I'm sure if you guys are watching, you know, Young Jordan from Twitter and from being Chicago Bulls Discord moderator, as well as Miss Melissa. But I don't want to, you know, just shout out. I'll keep it at this. Shout out to Derek, and I hope that we have him on the pod one of these days. But, you know, as you said, to the Roundtable community, shout out to Kevin, Lou, and shout out to our guy Gavin. I especially would not be here without Gavin Dorsey. So, you know, shout out to our team, man. And like Mike said, make sure you guys, I'll post a link after. Hop in the Discord. There's a QR code right there where the Roundtable, we're constantly talking about our community, but I'll be posting a link on my page. Just hop in the community, man. It's free. You come in there and you talk ball. You can post, post your own community posts the same way you do on Twitter, but you're around a lot more credential media members in the Roundtable community, man. Like, you could be sitting there and post a community post and be having a guy who was just sitting, like, you can make a community post about Billy Donovan, but in the Roundtable community, when you post that, somebody who just interviewed Billy Donovan, like Mike or like Gavin or like Kevin, will be under your post talking back and forth with you. I think that's the coolest part. It truly is a Roundtable community. So we're building that up right now, and hopefully we can look back on this episode and a year from now and see how much more we built it up from here, man.
But I love you shouted out Derek, because that man got more Bulls merch than the Reinsdorfs. Like, I'm talking about.
Hey, him and Hayes.
He's got every hat, every jacket. And when I saw his collection when they did the Bulls Superfan thing, I was like, damn, he's got a lot of
him and Hayes are booted up, man. like I know for myself, like I don't really care to get all the Bulls merch unless they pay me. But like I know him, he's booted up, and I like if you watch, shout out to Hayes, Chicago Bulls Central. Again, if you're watching this, you know Hayes. And if you watch his episodes, man, every show, I think his fans call him the Drip King. Every episode, he's got on like a whole Bulls outfit, and it's always new. Like he has unlimited Bulls merch. So shout out to him, and like you said, shout out to Derek Briscoe, man. I'm hoping we can get Derek, if you're watching, maybe Derek and Stacey King on here, because I know Stacey is Derek's boy, so that'd be top tier vibes having those two on here.
Yeah, that would definitely be dope. That would be super dope.
Absolutely. But okay, guys, well, we are coming up on 3 hours. Thank you so much for being in the pod with us, man. And like I said, we got some cool things coming for you guys. So hopefully we'll see you here next week, Sunday. And until then, man, go Bulls, scan that QR code and come talk ball with us and join the Bulls Roundtable community. But thank you guys so much for coming through.
Thanks again, guys.
Peace, everybody.